Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 3, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by the Hinakami on Wattpad. Now let's start. Third POV. Izuku Midoriya, who was 14 now, was spending time with his girlfriend for almost 2 years now. Izuku was so happy that he had followed the scream that day all those years ago and had found her. She has made him start loving himself more and decreased his self-hatred issues. Izuku, even after years of being with his father, still had self-hatred issues due to his green hair and green eyes that reminded him of his mother, but after a while with Stella's help, Izuku's issues had decreased due to her positive reinforcement. There are some days where they make reappearances, but Izuku was doing much better and Stella always made sure to support him whenever she knew he was having issues. Most of his mental issues had been addressed since Izuku had made his appearance in Hisashi's life at the age of 9, and Izuku knew he would never replace his father ever. Izuku could see the light and day differences between All Might and Hisashi. Even when he was busy, Hisashi always made time for Izuku when he asked for it. Izuku has also spent time helping Stella train, and Hisashi has even helped her. This caused Stella's experience and skills to skyrocket. Her quirk overall was a complex one but also an extremely powerful one after being put through the ringer by Izuku and Hisashi. Stella's quirk Phoenix Queen had evolved somewhat under the pressure that the Midoriyas put her through. Her quirk evolved from controlling fire, providing a healing aspect, and materializing a sword to the point that Stella could now control the fire enough that she could materializing wings of fire that allowed her to fly, increased the healing aspect, and allowed the to materialize the sword quicker. It also allowed her to boost her strength and speed past her natural limits for a PRD of time. She also could make any fire be put out at will as well, even if it was caused naturally or via another person's quirk. Overall, it was about double the power that she had before she started training with Izuku and Hisashi. They were proud of her accomplishments that she has gained in half of a year's worth of training. Months passed and Izuku had decided to take Stella out for a night on the town since they had a small break from her school. They were currently sitting on a hillside and were watching the city life pass by them. So Stella, you have about a year or so left before you attend a hero school. Have you decided where you want to go? Izuku asked her. She thought about it and honestly, she didn't know where she wanted to go. Honestly, if you end up with any long-term missions in another country, I would likely transfer to wherever you are stationed so we can spend time together. I don't really care about what hero school I go to. I just want to be near you, so as long as you are in the New York area, I will just attend the hero school near here, which is a highly rated school as well. Stella stated, and Izuku nodded his head at that and understood her longing. He as well wanted to be around her as well and didn't want to separate from her for a long PRD of time either. A week was reasonable and all, but anything longer than that would be annoying to Izuku. As they were just laying there, Stella decided to ask Izuku how his work was going in the business and in hero work. Overall, for the actual business, it's done well. We expanded into more foreign markets and have capitalized on several deals. We've also pushed your parents' businesses to a new height as well, and they gained traction in the American market at a faster pace than expected when the first deals were made between our families. They are expected to make a profit overall on all the American branches from their initial investments by the end of the year instead of in the next 3 years like projected. Izuku stated, and Stella nodded her head since she knew about that and was happy for her parents. Once they recuperate all of their investments, then it will be working in the black from now on, which will make things easier overall for their American branch. Izuku then started to talk about his hero work. There are limits on what I can tell you due to laws. Overall, I'm doing quite well in the cases I've been handling. I've had to deal with some special agent cases and I have killed. It was disturbing. I felt sick with myself and disgusted, but coming home to you after the mission made it easy to push down and move forward. Izuku stated as he hugged Stella. Stella had moved into the Midoriya's home halfway into their relationship since the amount of time she spent with Izuku. The parents agreed to it but warned them not to make any children, which caused them to blush. It honestly helped Izuku improve overall, with his girlfriend of almost 2 years being around more when he had to come back from those nastier missions. On those days, Izuku knew he wasn't a monster for dirtying his hands for the sake of peace. Izuku had found some interesting quirks as well, but kept them hidden for emergencies since they were a bit more destructive, and Izuku could see why they ended up being targeted for permanent removal due to how many people they killed with the quirks. Stella just hugged Izuku as he talked and nodded her head. Just remember, you're not a monster. These people you are killing have done many horrible things. It would be one thing to kill a random thug, but an entirely different thing to stop mass murders that just enjoy killing innocent people. Stella said, and Izuku leaned down and kissed her on the lips and thanked her. Stella then asked about the creature case since she knew some of it already from the media. It's getting troublesome. They are tracking down all of the DNAs and have found nearly all of them. It appears to be sourced in Japan, which means I will have to travel there for the mission, which is risky since it means I can run into them. Izuku said, and she felt him tense a bit at talking about them. She nodded her head. Just remember, if the case turns into a long one, then I will just transfer to Japan so I can spend time with you and all, Stella stated, and he nodded his head at the statement. Izuku just really didn't want to deal with them, but the more he and the commission dug into the case, the more it looked like he was going to be returning to Japan for a long-term mission, since he doubted a case like those creatures would be simple and easy to solve since it took them this long to even track the source of where they were being created to down to one DMN country. As they were resting, Izuku felt his phone vibrate and saw that it was time for them to leave and return home. As such, they got up and left and soon arrived home. Izuku found the entire family at the home getting ready for dinner. Since Izuku and Stella have been dating for over a year now and she moved in with the Midoriyas, the Vermilions had started showing up for dinner every other day, which has become a normal event. "We're home," Izuku called out, and Hisashi said that dinner was about done and to get ready, which they nodded their heads at. Soon dinner was ready and they all found themselves at the dinner table eating dinner and talking about different things. As the night went on, Izuku was just glad that he could enjoy days like this, but he knew that one day the peace would be destabilized. As they were sitting there eating dinner, Izuku received a phone call. It was from the president of the Hero Commission. Izuku looked at his father, who nodded his head, and Izuku just answered the phone there at the table. "Hello, sir. I'm having a feeling that I'm not going to enjoy the reason you are calling, am I?" Izuku said, feeling some dread when he saw the name on his caller ID when it ranged. "You would be correct, Hunter. We've gathered everything we could really gather from the creature you captured about a year ago. We haven't received any more attacks from creatures like it, but the issue still stands that it's a threat that needs to be dealt with. As such, I'm calling you to issue you a special agent mission in conjecture with the United Nations, since we've brought them into the loop about this mission and they are concerned about it as well. As such, starting in a few months you are to relocate to Japan for the foreseeable future under the authority of the UN. You are to use your special agent authority where you see fit to ensure you get the resources from the local heroes of Japan to ensure you get the job done. The UN and America want whoever is making these creatures stopped, and if they can't be captured when you find them, then you are to kill them to ensure they don't escape. Do you understand?" asked the president of the American Commission. Izuku was silent for a few moments but exhaled. "I understand, sir. I will start preparing to leave within the next month and a half. May I inform Stella of this order? She plans to attend a hero school wherever I am stationed at, so we can stay together." Izuku asked him and hoped the request would be approved, since Izuku didn't want to deal with being in Japan alone. Everyone at the dinner was tense due to hearing Izuku's words. Stella looked at him in concern and waited for him to receive an answer. Izuku waited and waited but then got a response. "Sorry for the wait. I was talking to a representative from the UN who is in my office about allowing the information to be told to Stella. I explained that your former family is in Japan and are significant heroes who do have some authority to cause you issues. They have agreed with me to have her read in the entire case so you don't have to hide things from her about it, so she can mentally support you since you have to be in your home country where you received a lot of trauma. We both know the likelihood of you running into them is going to be high as well, so it would be good to have her nearby. I would suggest having her apply to UA since it's the best hero school in Japan, but that's for you to decide on where she goes. If you want, I can do a recommendation for her to UA, or she can take the general exam. I know she's powerful enough to beat either exam." The president of the commission stated, and Izuku thanked him. Izuku then looked at Stella. I'll let Stella know of your offer to recommend her to the UA Hero course in Japan and our plans to move to Japan for the foreseeable future, Izuku said, so she would know the location of where they were going. I'll reach out to you in a few days with the decision since I know the paperwork for UA will need to be sent in soon, Izuku stated. He talked a bit more before ending the call. So, yeah, looks like we are going to Japan if you still want to go with me since I'm being stationed there for the foreseeable future. Izuku said as he looked at her, and she just quickly responded. Of course I still want to go with you. I without a doubt will go with you no matter what now, since you have to be near your previous family now. I can already foresee the future headaches that you are going to have now. She stated, and Izuku nodded his head. Old man, would you mind buying me a property in Japan? Actually, let's put it under Stella's parents' name or something so if they do figure me out they will have some trouble tracking me down. Izuku stated, and they all nodded their heads. That is a good idea. Anything to delay them finding you will be helpful. I think it might be a good idea to also buy a gated house so they can't just walk up to the house and have to go through a fence and a gate. If they go over it then they would be breaking and entering and you could cause legal issues for them as well. Hisashi stated, and Izuku nodded his head at that idea. Izuku really didn't want to deal with those people, but he knew he would likely have to no matter what in the end. Stella just rubbed his back and told him that she would support him and help him, which Izuku responded with a kiss, causing her to blush hard since it was in front of their parents. Third POV. It has been about a month since Izuku had received the phone call from the president of the commission in regards to his new orders. Stella had finished the schooling that she needed from her middle school and had tested out of it. They also decided that it would be a good idea for Stella to also test out of her high school education, so the only thing that she needs now is the actual hero course education system. The reason that they did this was to ensure that she had as much free time with Izuku that she could have. They didn't know what exactly UA would do with her free time during that day since she wouldn't need the classes, but they assumed that Nizu would likely put her in advanced classes like he has done so in the past with students like Stella that have passed through his halls. Izuku had looked around on the internet with the parents. They have even contacted a real estate agent in Japan and gave them a list of what they were searching for in their new home in Japan and the rough area where they wanted it to be. At first, the real estate agent thought they were being pranked since it was a foreign caller making the request, but soon realized they weren't kidding and got to work quickly. Outside of that, Izuku had talked to their parents and had to listen to threats from Francis Vermilion. Francis was threatening Izuku and telling him that he better take care of his daughter or else. Izuku was reaching his limit on listening to his threats and had snapped back. You think I am going to let the future mother of my children get hurt or mistreated? Izuku snapped out after listening to so many words of his. The room was silent until Izuku realized what he said and decided to hide his face in the couch pillow. God, kill me now. Izuku groaned out as the adults were all laughing at him. Oh, already planning marriage now are we? Teased Stella's mother, and Izuku groaned until he heard a squeak from behind him, and he turned around to find Stella returning from finishing her last day at the school. She was bright red from what she heard, and Izuku groaned again and hid his face in the pillow. Stella, you heard all of that, didn't you? Izuku asked, and she nodded her head. Izuku rolled his eyes and pulled her down onto his lap. Well, I mean it. When we get a bit older I will propose to you, okay? Izuku said, and she nodded her head while in his lap with a large blush. Izuku was also flushed red as well since he had said that in front of their parents. Stella's mother just said she approved of it while Francis rolled his eyes and grumbled out approval. Hisashi was just laughing at his son the entire time, which earned a glare from Izuku. As they all calmed down, Izuku looked at the message on his phone that he received. Seth got back with me. The paperwork for the new home in Japan was finalized. It's been put under the Vermilion's name. It's a home on the coastline of the Shizuoka prefecture. It's about 30 minutes away from the school via train and 10 or so away via car. I've had Seth arrange for a car to be sent to Japan for me to drive since my special agent license grants me the right to drive even though the law says I can't. So when I can, I will always take Stella to school myself so she doesn't have to take the train, or we can arrange for a driver from one of our local branches to drive her to and from school. Izuku stated, and everyone nodded their heads. They all just enjoyed their time before the children would leave in the next couple of weeks. Time passed quickly and the two of them were off from the United States to Japan. The trip was long but being together made it seem short. As soon as the plane landed, a car was driven up to them. It was a blue Mercedes-Benz GLC that was nice and clean. Now you would think that Izuku would be riding in a sports car or something, but that wasn't honestly the Midoriya way. No, they were more about efficiency and the ability to meet their needs, which this car did. It provided enough room for them to drive in and transport things, but also was a top-class car for what they needed. Izuku opened the door and allowed Stella into the passenger side. She looked at him and asked him if he actually knew how to drive. Izuku chuckled at that question. Do remember, multiple quirks, my 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲. Dad transferred all of his driving knowledge to me and then he helped me practice on a recreation of a Japanese road a few weeks ago. He went to great lengths to ensure I knew how to drive in Japan. Izuku stated, and Stella giggled at the lengths the two Midoriyas went to ensure Izuku was successful. God damn, the sounds of her giggles make me feel on cloud 9. Izuku thought as he finished loading everything into the car before starting to drive off. After about 40 minutes from driving from the airport, they soon arrived at their brand new home that Izuku had spent the time finding. I hope you enjoy our new home. I spent some time trying to find something that would give you a feeling of traditional Japan but also still have the modern conveniences that you enjoy so much. Izuku stated as they came upon the home. Stella was amazed at the home that she saw as they drove past a gated fence area. If the Yagis or anyone else wanted to get to them, then they had to break into the property or use a quirk to illegally enter, since Izuku had paid someone to fence the entire property in before they arrived. They owed several acres of land around the home as well, so no one could use the excuse of accidentally crossing into their land since it was all fenced at the property line. Izuku parked the car in the garage that was on the driveway that leads further to the main house building. The garage could fit around 3 full cars and had some other rooms in it for storage. We have a living area further down the path and then another one to our side closer to the shore, but we will be living in the main building that has the pool attached to it. If our parents decided to join us, or rather your parents, since Dad would have issues returning to Japan, they could stay in the ghost houses. Izuku stated as he pointed out the 2 other buildings that were on the land that they owned. Stella nodded her head and they made their way into the home. The home, living room with dining room, kitchen, outside kitchen, dining table and open-air pool, main bedroom and bathroom on the top floor. Overall, Stella loved the home and enjoyed the more traditional Japanese feeling of the style of the house, but it still provided many modern benefits that she enjoyed. Though she was curious about the bathroom that was connected to the main bedroom. Then she realized that there wasn't really a door blocking the sight. She turned to Izuku, who had a massive blush on his face. Sorry. Just tell me whenever you are wanting to take a shower and I will avoid our bedroom, Izuku said, and then she realized it. They were both alone in a new home together with no one else. It was as if they were newlywed couples. This caused her to blush hard and Izuku just rubbed her back since he had a good idea of what she was thinking about. Izuku did point out that the other bathrooms had a bit more privacy with them on the lower floors if she wanted to ever use those. He also pointed out that she didn't need to sleep in the same room either, even though they had been doing so for the past few months. She just shook her head and said it was fine and that it was just embarrassing to realize everything, which he chuckled at. Soon they finished unpacking the things that they had brought and decided to go out to shop for clothing and some other things since they only brought the bare minimum for the home from America. Izuku also set for a delivery of food to be delivered by a local food service company. We have about 5 hours before the company arrives to deliver all the food I ordered to stock the home. So we can go now to get new clothing or wait until tomorrow, since I don't know if you want to get out later after all the food is delivered. Izuku stated and asked her question, and she thought about it and decided she wanted to go out now so they didn't have to waste time tomorrow doing it. Izuku nodded his head at her, and after a handful of minutes they got in the car and drove off to the shopping mall. Soon they arrived at the mall and entered it. Izuku had decided to change his hair color to pure white while outside and wore some black shades to help hide from others since his younger self was still on some missing person papers that were hanging around. Stella had noticed them but didn't comment about it since they were in public. Soon, they had gotten all of the things that they needed and had returned home. Ikki. I'm sure you saw the posters. Stella asked. Izuku nodded his head at Stella's statement. Indeed, I don't get why they have put more up. It's been years since I've left and I have no plans to return to them. Anyway, if they ever find out who my father is, they will lose any longing of connecting to me anyway. I don't have any regrets about Dad being my father since he was there for me and has given up his old self to take care of me unlike them. So, I've let my anger go regarding them, but I don't know if it will stay gone if I find myself in front of them. Izuku stated, and she nodded her head and just rubbed his back, helping him stay calm. Soon the food arrived and Izuku opened the gate via his phone and allowed the driver to reach their house. They soon had everything stocked into the cabinets and fridge and were ready to live out their lives in Japan moving forward. Third POV. Izumi Midoriya was a hunter. He enjoyed bringing criminals into face justice for those that sought to harm people. He wanted people to feel safe and secure, and just because he came to Japan doesn't mean that he was going to stop tracking down villains and bringing them to justice. As such, Izumi Midoriya decided to start his hero patrols in Japan after a week of being in the country. Stella and he had enjoyed their free time together, but he did need to do what he was sent here for. So once Stella went to sleep, Izuku decided to go out and start his search of anything that would lead him to find out who was making the creatures. Hisashi had some possible clues to who it might have been. Hisashi had told Izuku and the president of the commission about an old doctor he worked with. Hisashi actually confessed that the doctor is older than 100 years, which had surprised everyone when they learned about it. Hisashi said that the doctor had a quirk called Life Force. This quirk is similar to the anti-aging quirk that we possess, but it's a degraded version in my view. It provides a youthful appearance compared to your true age, but it has a horribly negative effect. It causes the user's physical mobility to worsen, which means that it was never a quirk that I wanted to take since it would hamper me in my battles all those years ago. Hisashi stated, and Izuku would have to agree. From what Hisashi knew is that the doctor was involved in researching quirks and always wanted to find a way to reproduce quirks. The doctor believed that quirks would hit a singularity point one day and cause something to happen. Even Hisashi believed in the singularity point, but he believed that the quirks would reset on the power level and become weaker before growing stronger again. He also believed the quirkless people were a default state of humans that were left in the event that quirks ever broke humans. This way the human race would survive if humans went too far. It's why he always respected the quirkless people due to this belief, since they might be the key to keeping humans alive. Hisashi didn't think that the doctor had made a breakthrough in duplicating quirks, but it appears that he may have found a way around it through a bastardized version of it. It's a good thing he never knew about Izuku's quirk, since it would have proven his theory possible. He never knew of Izuku or Inko. Hisashi had said in that meeting, and Izuku was glad the man didn't know about him either, since the doctor might have tried to take Izuku for experiments. Though, regardless of Izuku's personal feelings towards the doctor and his past work for his father, Izuku knew he would arrest the man since the man was a threat to the world with his experiments. At least I have a point of reference to start searching for, Izuku thought as he was jumping from roof to roof during the night. As he was moving through the city, he noticed someone following him. He used his crows to keep an eye on the individual and cursed when he realized who it was. I didn't think I would run into someone from my past so soon. Izuku thought as the person that was following him was none other than Eraserhead Aizawa Shoyuda, who was Izuku's uncle. Izuku came to stop on a roof edge and waited for Eraserhead to get close to him. Eraserhead came on the roof and slowly walked towards Izuku. "Hello, Eraserhead," Izuku stated, which caused his uncle to tense. "Oh, you know of me?" Eraserhead asked, prepared to attack. "Indeed I do. You are quite a good underground hero. Apologies for disturbing your patrol routes, but I am here under assignment hunting an organization down," Izuku stated, and Eraserhead was confused about who this individual was. "Who are you?" he asked, and Izuku chuckled. "Not a surprise you don't know me. I am a hero from America after all. I am the shadow hero, Hunter," Izuku stated as he jumped off the roof and disappeared via his shadows. Eraserhead came to the edge and saw him gone and cursed. "The shadow hero, Hunter. He sounded young though," Aizawa stated as he decided to move on with his patrol. Izuku then came out of the shadows and watched his uncle move away. I handled my emotions quite well for seeing him, but he didn't really cause me issues. He just wasn't around for me is all. Izuku thought as he jumped away in the opposite direction of the way his uncle went. Soon, Izuku went through several small-time criminals and questioned them if they knew of any organizations engaging in human experiments, since he didn't want to say the doctor's name and give his hunt of him away if he somehow had a way to keep watch on people that knew about him. So far Izuku had struck out the entire first week of hunting, but he expected that in all honesty and would need to expand his search zone slowly but surely until he got a lead. He did create a small uproar in the police department since they believed that Izuku was a vigilante because Izuku didn't stick around after ensuring the police were given the criminals. He wasn't required to as a special agent. He just filed his reports with the UN and they would handle everything on his behalf because they didn't want him wasting his time with the local police unless he was requesting their support in the mission, and he wasn't going to do that anytime soon until he had a lead on where to start looking at. As such, that is how Izuku kept going about his days and kept striking out. However, a special little event happened about 10 months or so before the start of UA entrance exams. Izuku was on the streets walking with Stella when he heard an explosion coming from the distance. They decided to check it out and see if Izuku needed to get involved, since he could easily use his quirks and the shadows to transform into his outfit without any issues. As they approached the area, they saw none other than one Bakugo Fing Katsuki in the hands of a villain that was trying to kill him while using him to destroy some buildings around them. The heroes on site weren't really doing anything except for Backdraft, who was trying to keep the fires from spreading to more buildings and endangering people. The other heroes were just standing around doing really nothing, even though Izuku saw multiple ways for them to get the situation under control. Kamui Woods could have used his branches to get Bakugo after wetting them with Backdraft's help for a few seconds and then pushed past the explosions from Bakugo to grab him. Mountain Lady could have leaned down and picked the villain up. Of course, she would get some damage from Bakugo's explosions, but it would put an end to the fight. Death Arms could have moved to the top of the buildings and looked for a chance to jump down and attack the villain. They could have thrown something into the villain's eyes, causing a gap in the attacks, since he would be blinded for a bit and couldn't attack or redirect Bakugo's arms to attack others. However, they were not doing any of that. Instead, they were just standing there letting the idiot die. Izuku could also see his half-sibling and Todoroki standing in the crowd shouting for Bakugo to hold on. Then Izuku heard it. One of the heroes said they needed to wait for someone with a better-suited quirk to come and help, and this just annoyed Izuku to no end. Stella, I'm going to help even though it's them. If I turned an eye, then I'm no better than they are, Izuku stated as he stepped into a shadow, and she nodded her head as she sat at a table at a little cafe watching. Izuku quickly transformed into his hunter outfit and had a few of his crows in the air above the fight. Izuku always kept a large number of his crows in his shadows since he found that he could store things in it and they wouldn't age or expire. Izuku was amazed when he discovered this out with his shadow emissary quirk. Anyway, back to the actual problem at hand. Izuku came out of the shadows and waited for a good time to strike. When the villain turned to the side a bit, Izuku darted out and everyone saw him but the villain until it was too late. Izuku got up close and used his shadows to grab Bakugo and yanked him out. Once he did that, he jumped back with Bakugo and handed him off to the other heroes. They were trying to figure who he was, but Izuku just dashed back towards the villain, who raised a tentacle and smashed it down towards Izuku, who just dodged to the side and pierced the villain with a shadow WHP, but it just didn't do much. Izuku though wanted the villain to let his guard down as Izuku jumped back and the villain attacked, but at that moment Izuku yanked his WHP back and made them pull the two eyes out and into his hands, which caused the villain's body to break apart, since Izuku had guessed as the only actual solid part that they were required to keep the body together. Right after Izuku did that, All Might arrived on site and crashed into the ground looking like he was going to attack the villain, but Izuku had defeated it already. Everyone was stunned to see the villain defeated so easily, but also to see All Might late to the party in a sense. Izuku just rolled his eyes under his mask, though none of them knew that. Izuku handed the villain's eyes to the police officer, who was about to ask who he was, but Izuku just disappeared into the shadows near them. Everyone was shocked and stunned. Izuku then came out of the cafe and sat down with Stella without anyone even realizing he came out of thin air, since he exited the restroom from inside of the building, which made everyone none the wiser. Stella rolled her eyes at his dramatic display and Izuku just chuckled. The two of them sat there as the heroes and police were looking around for Izuku, but they couldn't find him. Even All Might saw no signs of where Izuku went, so they had to give up. You know they are going to assume you are a vigilante, right? Stella said, and Izuku nodded his head. Doesn't matter, whenever they try to arrest me for it, I just need to show my hero license. I have both on me, and I will show my basic one first before the special agent one, since both have all my information blocked out except my hero name and ID number. Izuku stated, and Stella just nodded her head. Izuku asked her if she was ready for the UA entrance exam since she decided against doing the recommendation exam. She wanted to show off her own strength and not be told she got in due to connections or money. I'm ready as I can be, but I'm going to keep training with the 10 months or so that we have left. If you have any time, could you help me get a bit better? She asked him, and he nodded his head. I will always make time for you, my Haim. Izuku teased, and she blushed a bit and smacked his side, which just earned a laugh from him. Both of them got up and soon left the cafe since they decided it was time to return home for the day. As they walked away, they ended up walking right by All Might in his skinny form, Izumi Yagi, Katsuki Bakugo, and Shoto Todoroki, who all didn't realize that it was Izuku but tensed up when they all thought they heard Izuku's voice but couldn't see him anywhere since Izuku and Stella had already disappeared in the crowd. They all talked to each other and confirmed that they all thought the same thing. Izuku Yagi was just near them and they didn't even notice. Third POV. Over the next 10 months before the UA entrance exam, Izuku had spent a lot of time helping Stella train while he did his work on the special agent case at night. However, he was honestly astonished by the display of her abilities and combat learning speed, which has only gotten better over time. Izuku had realized that even with all of his quirks, that she was one of the best people capable of fighting him or his father in a battle. The reason he believed this was due to how fast she always improved and the fact that her quirk provided her multiple benefits that could disable them. Both Hisashi and Izuku relied on their healing quirks to get them back up and going, but she is capable of producing fire hot enough to cauterizing their cells quickly. She's a close combat person but also a long-range combat individual, which provides her the ability to fight them in multiple different ways, and her quirk also provides her a healing aspect that would make her last against them. Though, Izuku said capable of fighting them in a battle and not defeating them in a battle. Izuku and Hisashi both have a large number of quirks that would allow them to get out of sticky situations as long as they didn't underestimate their opponents, and Hisashi had taught Izuku that again and again. Hisashi had reminded Izuku that even though he was stronger than All Might, he suffered a defeat at his hands since he had let his guard down and underestimated his opponent. As such, Izuku knew to be careful against even the weakest person that he fought and to always approach them as if they could kill him if they were lucky enough, and fate smiled upon them. As the months passed away, Izuku also saw an increase in the activity of those that used to be related to him. He could see them looking around the city where he was on the day of the sludge attack. They must have heard my voice when walking by with Stella. They shouldn't know who we are though. They are just blindly searching since I have seen Uncle Aizawa, Uncle Endeavor, Grandpa Torino, Uncle Sir Night Eye, and whoever his little helper is. Izuku thought that he realized that he called them with titles as if they were family, and Izuku honestly didn't know how to feel about that. He did it out of instinct, and that is how he found himself on the couch in the living room with his head on Stella's lap, asking her for her thoughts about that. From what you told me, they weren't there in your life. So they didn't really harm you as your former parents did, nor sister and her friends did. It's possible you don't really blame them as much as you first thought. The question is, did they know about your treatment before you disappeared? If they did, then it's a whole separate issue, but if they didn't and were lied to by the Yagis, then it's okay for you to still want to be associated with them. Stella stated, and Izuku nodded his head. Right now he just didn't want to deal with them but knew he would have to sooner or later, and the number of times he keeps running into them keeps increasing slowly and slowly. The last few months passed and it was now time for the UA entrance exam. Izuku drove Stella to the UA gates and dropped her off. People looked at the car but let it go as it wasn't really shown offish. As such, they just ignored it for the most part, but Stella herself did get looks from perverted males which annoyed Izuku, which Stella just giggled at him and put a kiss on his lips before walking away. A lot of boys wanted to glare at Izuku, but he already drove off and parked the car far away from UA before he changed into his hero outfit and teleported by using one of his crows to get a visual of the inside of UA. Izuku blended in with the shadows quickly before the alarms and sensors could pick him up. Izuku had no issues with 𝐻𝐻𝐿 finding out about him being there, but he didn't want to cause an issue, so he just hid and made his way into the school. Izuku wanted to spy on the exams because he personally wanted to see what they were like on the day of the exam. Call it an old childhood dream of his that he never got to live, so this was the next best thing. Izuku has also been debating on revealing himself to his uncle 𝐻𝐻𝐿. Izuku is highly doubtful that 𝐻𝐻𝐿 would have allowed Izuku to be treated like he was due to 𝐻𝐻𝐿's past. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 would have taken Izuku away if he knew, and Izuku believed he just trusted All Might's and Green Tornado's words because of how long he knew them and trusted them to not lie to him. As such, Izuku had already asked the UN and the Americans' Commission President for permission to read 𝐻𝐻𝐿 in on the case if Izuku decided to bring him in on the case, since he would involve 𝐻𝐻𝐿 most likely even if he didn't fully reveal himself. As Izuku was moving around the campus, he soon found himself in front of said Principal 𝐻𝐻𝐿, who was staring at the shadow that Izuku was hidden in. Izuku was kind of shocked that 𝐻𝐻𝐿 was staring straight at him. There's no way he knows I am here, right? I'm pretty sure I hid before the sensors triggered. Izuku thought and watched 𝐻𝐻𝐿. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 just walked up to the shadow and waved his paw and told the shadow Izuku was hiding in to follow him. Izuku did as he was asked since he had been found out. How did he find me? Izuku thought as he just followed 𝐻𝐻𝐿. Soon they arrived in the principal's office where Izuku came out of the shadows. Well, hello Mr. Hunter, 𝐻𝐻𝐿 said, and Izuku bowed slightly and sat down without speaking since he was afraid he would give himself away in full since 𝐻𝐻𝐿 was smart. Now, I am wondering why an American hero is here in Japan. Eraserhead told me that he met you before then there was the event with the sludge villain. You keep under the radar and do your reports for your actions to some other entity. I know that since the police believed you to be a vigilante, but then they received official reports with your hero name and ID number on them through official channels which I can't track back. So that means several things from what I can assume. 1. You're wanting to keep a low profile as best as you can, but you don't mind getting involved in other matters. And 2. You have some primary mission you're meant to complete here in Japan that warranted you to come here. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 stated, and Izuku nodded his head. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 observed Izuku and noticed how he never spoke in front of him. He's not mute since Aizawa said he spoke. So I must know him and likely could figure out from his voice even if it's modulated via the voice changer. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 thought as he sat there. Interesting. Would you mind telling me if the mission involves UA since I found you on my campus? I would like to prepare for any threats you might know about that would attack here, or if I have a mole or something if you are hunting an individual down. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 asked, and Izuku shook his head and wrote down that the case doesn't involve UA and that he was here for purely personal reasons since he didn't get to attend schooling past elementary and had tested out of all of his education a few years ago before becoming a pro hero. Izuku wrote that it used to be a dream to attend UA when he was a child, but it never became reality due to his situation in the past. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 thanked him for letting him know the reason and offered him a view from the control room with all of his staff, which Izuku accepted since he didn't have to hide in the shadows. Unknown to Izuku though, he would run face to face with his past much harder than he thought he would. Though, while they were walking, 𝐻𝐻𝐿 had been making connections in his mind to all the information he had. He's young. Really young based on the note and height. He's tested out of all schooling, so he's gotten his high school degree. He said he wanted to attend UA. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 thought but was cut off from his thoughts since they had arrived at the control room. The sad thing is he was close to putting Izuku's identity together from all the small clues he had due to his high-spec quirk, but such the train of thoughts due to arriving at the control room and needing to be ready for it. Izuku thought was freaking out because the moment he entered the room it was filled with people that could recognize him. Endeavor, Sir Night Eye, Eraserhead, Grand Torino, Recovery Girl, and 𝐻𝐻𝐿 were all in the room with the other staff of UA. They all looked at him, and Eraserhead stood up a bit on guard when he saw Hunter. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 waved him off. Everyone, this is an American hero who is just visiting campus. He's here in Japan on a mission that is unrelated to us but wanted to watch the exam, so I've allowed him in here. Please treat him with care. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 stated, and they all nodded their heads. Some tried to talk to him and Izuku wrote out responses that confused Aizawa, who questioned him about it. Hunter, the last time I ran into you, you were completely able to talk, so why aren't you now? Aizawa questioned with a raised eyebrow. Izuku just didn't know what to say, so he shrugged his shoulders. Then, that is when Izuku tensed up as the door opened, and in came Green Tornado with all might. FHC, what are they doing here? Izuku thought, and then he realized Izumi Yagi, Katsuki Bakugo, and Shoto Todoroki would all be taking the exam today, and he had forgotten about them. Oh dear God. That means my Heim will have to deal with them. That's just fantastic. Izuku thought, and Nizu noticed how Izuku had tensed but put it aside in his mind for now and would come back to it later. All Might greeted everyone and had powered down, not realizing Izuku was in the room since he just blended in with everyone. All Might, you idiot, we have a guest with us. Endeavor shouted out and pointed to where Izuku was sitting. All Might freaked out and didn't know what to do. Izuku though was enjoying the show. Take that, you butt. I am so enjoying the sight of you freaking out. Izuku thought in his mind as Nizu called him. Izuku turned his attention to Nizu, who wore a serious expression. Hunter, may I ask a favor of you and ask that you keep this quiet? Nizu asked, and Izuku wrote out that he would keep silent. They don't need to know about me already knowing it. Izuku thought, since it would be a good thing to have it, a favor from Nizu that he could cash in later on. Like helping me keep them off my back if they ever find out the truth of me. Izuku thought in his mind. Soon they all calmed down and All Might tried to start up a conversation with Izuku, who just flat out ignored the hero and didn't even write out responses. Everyone noticed it but didn't comment about it and just kept watching the exam going on. The written exam had finished and all of the students were in the auditorium listening to Present Mike talk about the physical portion of the exam. One student got up and pointed at Izumi and told her to stop muttering. Oh God. I hate the fact that we share that. Izuku thought, since he knew he got it from his father, and Izuku realized that he had passed it on to his half-sibling. Soon, they all went to their separate exam sites and Stella wasn't with any of his past individuals, so Izuku was happy about that. The exam soon started and Stella, being trained by the Midoriyas, knew to dash off right away as the gates opened. This led her to get about a full minute's worth of time being able to fight the robots before the others were told to go by Present Mike. There is no go in the hero world. He yelled out and they all got running. Izuku just chuckled in his mind at all of them. About half of the time had passed and Stella was topping the charts in points. She's even received a few rescue points from destroying a robot that was about to attack another person from behind. The people from Izuku's past, sadly, were doing good and would end up passing. They were all high-ranked, but Stella had far more points due to her abilities. Then Eraserhead spoke up. I want the girl called Stella Vermilion. Overall, she's amazing, and if she ever loses control of that powerful quirk for some reason, then I can stop it easier than Vlad could. Overall, I doubt she needs quirk training, but heavier focused on quirkless combat since she seems to be far more quirk reliant, and then she needs the training in the other aspects of being a hero as well. Aizawa stated, and Nizu agreed with him before Vlad King could say anything. Soon, the 0-pointers were all out and about when Power Loader spoke up about one robot going haywire. In zone number 3, which was where Izumi was located at. Everyone looked at the screen to see Izumi trapped by a boulder that had pinned her leg and likely broke her ankle, which meant she couldn't escape. Even with her quirk being telekinesis like Inko Yagi's, it wouldn't do Izumi any good since she was clearly exhausted from the exam. There was also another girl there as well, trapped. Izuku wondered why she didn't use one for all to get herself out, since she should have been training since young to receive it. But Izuku didn't care since he wouldn't get involved unless there was no room left for them to escape or someone to save them. I can't get it to stop. Someone destroy it and save them since it's far too close to them anyway. Nizu shouted out as he tried hacking the robot before it would get to them, but the robot was really damned close already and wouldn't stop in time even if it received the command. All Might stood up and was about to go when someone yelled at the screen. They all turned and looked to see the pro hero Hunter standing in front of the girls. They all turned to his seat to only see what looked like darkness/shadows dissipating into the air. They all wondered how he got there faster than All Might, but didn't care as they watched the scene since it would be too late for All Might to get there anyway. Down at the robot, The girl and Izumi were screaming for help when Izuku appeared. He looked at her with his quirked vision using all for one and did indeed see two quirks inside of her. Her natural quirk and one for all due to how much power it radiated off of itself. He knew it matched what All Might still barely had inside of himself as well. Izuku then turned back to the robot and raised his hands and arms. Everyone watched as he pushed his hands together into ball and ripped them away from each other, and seconds later the robot broke apart as spikes of black material which were shadows all pierced out of the zero-pointer robot. Izuku had manipulated the shadows inside of the empty spaces inside of the robot and had broken it apart from inside out. This caused it to fall to the sides where no one was standing at. Everyone was stunned at how easily he destroyed the robot, but then got knocked out of their shock when Present Mic's voice ranged out calling the time. Izuku turned to the girls and waved his hands as shadows gathered around and lifted the rubble off of them, freeing them. The one girl got up and thanked Izuku as Izumi tried to stand but fell down. Izuku just used his shadows to catch her in annoyance. Why am I helping her more than needed? Oh wait. Because I am a hero and God I hate her. Izuku thought as he carried her via the shadows he was controlling and dropped her on the ground at Recovery Girl. Though, drop would be too harsh since he lightly put her down even though he really wanted to drop her for real, but Recovery Girl would be sad at him for doing that in front of her. Izuku then jumped back into the shadows and found himself back in the control room where he had come from. Everyone turned to him and he shrugged his shoulders as if nothing happened. Izuku was sure he heard Aizawa and Sir Night Eye whisper out a "what the F," but he ignored them. Izuku took a paper out and wrote something down. He wrote a message to Nizu that said he would likely bring him in on a case in the coming month or so since he might need help tracking a large threat down that he would rather get done sooner rather than later. Nizu nodded his head and said he would be waiting to hear from him about the potential case. Izuku waved and then left them all in the room. Are we going to talk about how weird he is? Present Mic stated as he sat in his chair. Some staff nodded their heads, but Nizu spoke up. I'm sure I know him from somewhere. It's the reason he didn't talk like Aizawa pointed out. Hunter was sure I would figure him out and he's determined to keep his identity hidden for some reason. It might be a part of his mission requirements. Anyway, I know he's the same age as our incoming freshman. Nizu stated and everyone was in shock. Sir, are you sure? All Might asked even though he and Inko weren't really popular with the staff due to their issues regarding their missing son that they all knew about. I'm sure. I've gotten some clues from a talk I had with him in my office. He wrote out that the case doesn't involve UA and that he was here for purely personal reasons since he didn't get to attend schooling past elementary and had tested out of all of his education a few years ago before becoming a pro hero. Hunter wrote that it used to be a dream to attend UA when he was a child, but it never became reality due to his situation in past. Then we have the fact that he doesn't speak in front of me, which means I can identify him. He's really young, but I wonder who Hunter is. Aizawa, you've run into him before at night since he seems to operate mostly at night. Keep an eye out on him. I might end up in a battle with America over Hunter. I have multiple theories and it's possible he's in a safe situation, but I just want to be careful. If he ever asks any of you for help on something, please accept his request if you can, since I want him to trust us and reach out to us if he needs help. Nizu stated while he was still trying to figure who Hunter was. He indeed had multiple theories, and one of them was that Hunter was Izumi Yagi. The reason he thought this was due to the fact that Izuku disappeared during elementary. Hunter said he never finished past elementary and had tested out. Hunter said he wanted to go to UA like Izuku did, and both had issues in their childhoods. Hunter was also likely the same age as Izumi Yagi, which meant there was a 40% chance in Nizu's mind with the current information that Hunter was Izumi Yagi, but there were many questions of how Izuku got to America and became a hero if it was indeed him. All of the Hunter's information is blocked by the American government. Only his hero name and ID number are available, which means they are wanting to keep his identity under wraps. Nizu thought as he dismissed everyone to get started on their work. While they were all doing that and Izuku was freaking out. I really gave up too much information. Uncle Nizu likely has a lot of guesses of who I am and likely has already figured me out. God, why does he have such a big brain? Izuku thought since he just prayed Nizu would keep silent on his identity for now and just asked in private instead of sending a manhunt for him. Though, outside of Izuku's freaking out, Izuku arrived in front of UA right as Stella walked out. She got into the car and they drove off and went home for the day where they would relax and wait for her results in 2 weeks. Third POV. Even though Izuku knew that Stella had placed first in the hero exam and first on the written exam, Izuku decided to tease her about if she passed or not. Izuku was having fun up to the point that she threatened to kick him out of their bedroom to the couch. Okay. I am sorry. Izuku quickly apologized and was on his knees since he knew he wasn't allowed to go to any of the other rooms to sleep and had to stay on the couch or she would just extend the time limit. He's ended up on the couch once before and it wasn't enjoyable. Izuku had gotten far too used to sleeping with Stella's warmth that he didn't sleep at all that night. He couldn't even fall asleep for 30 minutes, which would have granted him an entire day's worth of energy, but nope. Izuku just kept turning and tossing all night long since he didn't have patrol that day and he had eye bags under him the next morning. Stella decided to take pity on him and allowed him to cuddle up to her, which allowed him to fall asleep for long enough to activate Power Nap to grant him a full night's rest after he apologized for throwing her in the pool that day before. Izuku learned that once the threat came out about sleeping on the couch, then Stella was at her limit with him teasing her or whatever he was currently doing. It wasn't limited to just teasing her either. If he were doing something really idiotic, then she would threaten him with sleeping on the couch. It became an extremely powerful tool for him to use against Izuku and they both knew it. So, would you like your results or wait for the next few days when it should arrive? Izuku asked and she decided to just wait, and that is what they did. The next few days passed and the results arrived at the P.O. box that they had registered in her name so that the school didn't know her exact address. It would provide one more layer of protection from them tracking them down if their connection got out. Izuku had stopped at it on the way home from an early morning patrol since he's noticed some decreases in villain activity and he decided to look into it, but he didn't find any of them. It was as if all the villains were slowly disappearing. Izuku placed the results on the table and had made breakfast for his Hime and woke her up once it was done. As they sat down and ate, Stella opened the results and Izuku's mood was ruined. "I am here to deliver the results," yelled out All Might as he was on the screen. "Hello, young Vermilion. I am here to congratulate you on passing the written exam with 96%, which is the highest result in UA history," stated All Might, and Izuku kissed her on the cheek. "Good job, my Hime," Izuku said, and they kept listening into the device. Outside of the written exam, we also have the results for the physical exam. Once again, you scored first place in the physical exam with 192 points, which means you are 10 points higher than my personal record. This also means that you are the class representative for the entire first year's class. All Might stated, and then it provided more information like she was in class 1A. The projections soon stopped and they talked about the results. Izuku warned her that the people from her past were attending that school as well since he saw their results and the without a doubt passed. There was also the issue of All Might and Green Tornado teaching at the school moving forward. Izuku overall believed them working there would open the school to being targeted by villains that want to take shots at the hero's reputation, since attacking UA and All Might and not even succeeding would still be a hit to the hero's reputation. However, he wasn't going to reveal himself just to beach them out over the idea of All Might working there. "Stella, if something ever happens, then reach out to me via text. If there's any trip off the main building, then text me the location so I can check in on it with my crows, and if something happens I can come. I'm not really concerned about the main campus, but I just want to be safe, my Hime, because something doesn't feel right with the criminal activity recently." Izuku told her, and she agreed to alert him of any trips off campus. Soon, they just went about their day with some light training and then relaxed since she would be starting school in about a month. Izuku asked Stella about her outfit that she would wear, and he was a bit annoyed about the skin being shown. If Izuku had his way, no skin would be showing, but he didn't want to be controlling, so he kept his mouth shut, and Stella could tell. "You want to comment, don't you?" Stella asked him, and he nodded his head. "I do, but I don't want to be controlling," Izuku said, and she said she wanted his comments, but he would need to accept whatever she decided in regards to it in the end. "I wish the chest was covered up a bit more. I could deal with the legs, but I just really wish the chest was covered up a bit more since I don't want other men looking," Izuku stated, and she giggled at him, and he pouted, but she said no skin would be showing. She showed the notes, and she would have a layer of material going over her body under the outfit. It would provide her some protection from the elements and some attacks. It's also meant to be tear-resistant in the event that everything else gets removed from me. So even though it looks like the skin is showing, you need to look at the hands compared to the legs and chest. It's two different colors but slightly. It won't be directly showing any skin in the legs or chest area and only the lower arms. Stella stated, and Izuku said he was completely happy with that since he didn't see the notes about that. Izuku did make a comment about killing any perverts that dared previous on his Heim, and she just fell over on the couch laughing at that, which earned Izuku just pulling her onto his chest into a cuddle. Soon the start of UA had arrived and Stella got up and dressed in her uniform, which Izuku admitted that he found attractive. She just jabbed him playfully in the side at his comments, but he just smirked and lifted her chin slightly and kissed her. Izuku wasn't in his hero outfit or anything today. Instead, he was just in a business suit that made him look a lot like his father. Ikki, you know how you always thought you were like your mother? I think you look far more like your father just with green hair since you stopped adding white in now. Your hairstyles match more now and you have grown out of most features that look similar to that woman. Stella stated, and Izuku smiled a bit and thanked her. Izuku looked in the mirror and did realize that if his hair and eyes were white he could be mistaken as a carbon copy of his father, and that made Izuku extremely happy. Stella. What do you think would happen if they find out my identity and I just quickly turn my hair and eyes white in front of All Might? I think it would be a fun sight to see if he mistakes me for my father. I kind of want to see his reaction. Izuku said with a smirk. Stella just rolled her eyes at him and sighed. Just be careful with All Might. Remember to not let your anger consume you or you will sleep on the couch, Stella said as she pinched his side, and he gave in and said he would be careful. Soon, Izuku drove Stella to UA and dropped her off. Izuku was going to the local office branch today to do some work and check in with how the operations are going for their Japanese businesses. Stella, on the other hand, soon arrived in the classroom of 1A. She entered the room to find Shoto, Todoroki, Katsuki, Bakugo, and Izumi Yagi. There was also the boy that called Yagi out at the presentation by present mic during the exam. The boy was talking to Yagi and apologizing to her for calling her out when she was clearly paying more attention than him and was a better person. Stella just ignored them all and took a seat near the front door. Soon the entire class was filled with people and they noticed there was one extra person with one less desk. Ikki said the teacher for 1A is his uncle, which he's unsure if he hated Ikki or not due to his previous quirkless statues. However, one thing is clear, that someone will be expelled if not more people, since Ikki said that his uncle had a habit of expelling people. Stella thought as she noticed Eraserhead in his sleeping bag at the door. Stella did wonder if Izuku would take pity on the man and give him a second quirk like the power nap quirk if it was compatible with Eraserhead's body. However, she was pulled out of her thoughts when he started speaking. Everyone shut up, I am Shoyuda Aizawa. You will call me Aizawa-sensei. Now put these gym uniforms on in the changing room and get out to the training field in 8 minutes or I will expel you, Aizawa stated, and Stella just got up and quickly moved to do it. This caused everyone else to get moving as well, and soon everyone was in the changing room. Stella was standing out on the field and Aizawa came out soon after her and was surprised to already see a student on the field. He looked at her and she looked at him. Good day, Eraserhead, Stella stated, and Aizawa's eyebrows raised a bit in shock that a student and a foreign student at that knew who he was. I'm curious of how you know of me, Aizawa stated, and she chuckled a bit. I've been told about you. Though, I wonder if you will live up to the hype he gave me. We can only see sensei, Stella stated, because in all honesty, she hoped Izuku had more family that loved him than just Hisashi. Izuku was unsure of Aizawa since he never came to help him, but he always did send birthday cards every single year. Izuku himself honestly hoped the man wasn't like his previous parents, but Izuku was afraid to break the mental image that he has of his uncle, who he thought was cool since Eraserhead fought nearly quirkless all of the time. Eraserhead was about to ask who told her, but the other students came out and he kept his mouth shut, but he was watching her more closely now. Soon, they started doing tests and Stella had to do the ball throw first because she scored first place in the exam. Everyone watched her as she walked up to the circle and took the ball. She powered her quirk up to fuel steam and controlled some fire around the ball and just threw it and it blasted off into the sky. It burnt the ground around her and you could smell the charred ground. Aizawa was surprised at her quirk usage since it was even more than the entrance exam. She held back in the exam but went more out here. No, she was more controlled in the exam and this was more brute force to get a further distance. Aizawa thought as he watched the number increase and increase. It soon finished and the ball had gone far enough that the distance was large enough to have made it to China's coast. Aizawa showed the score and people were shocked. Then someone talked about how the test was going to be fun, which Aizawa got annoyed at and stated that whoever ended up in the last place would be expelled. The girl with the zero-gravity quirk named Uraraka stated that it wasn't fair. Before Aizawa spoke up though, Stella did. Fair? Is the life of the quirkless people fair? To be beaten and neglected by their own family. To be neglected by everyone that is meant to take care of them. Is it fair for those with so-called villainous quirks to be treated harshly just because of a quirk? Villain attacks. Acts of God that claim people's lives. No, they aren't, but as heroes, we can hopefully correct some of the unfairness with the influence and power we will hold. Stella stated with some coldness in her voice. Aizawa smiled and spoke up. She stated almost the exact words out of my mouth. She's right and UA gives the teachers the right to conduct our homerooms as we wish. I can do as I wish with you all, which includes expelling you all if I so want to. Let's start the so-called fun. Aizawa stated with a smile. The people that had harmed Izuku in his life all flinched and Stella had noticed the Yagi's adults hiding behind the building side watching the class as well. Stella just had a light smile on her face as she moved back to the group of students but glared at the pervert that was looking at her and the girls. After a while, they all finished the tests and Aizawa-sensei showed the results. Stella placed first with Todoroki second, Yaoyorozu in third, Yagi in fourth, Bakugo in fifth, and so forth. Mineta ended in 21st place. Aizawa-sensei looked at him and told him he was expelled. Mineta tried to scream and protest. I didn't even get to touch the girl's boobies yet. Mineta stated as he tried to touch Stella, but she turned her quirk on, burning him with first-degree burns. Ow! He yelled out as he felt a fabric wrap around him. Aizawa had grabbed him and was glaring at him. Congratulations, you are now under arrest for attempted SXL assault. Aizawa said, and Stella had a smirk on his face. He told everyone else to go back to the classroom and introduce themselves to each other. That is how Stella found herself in front of everyone, introducing herself. Hello, I am Vermilion, Stella. I was born in France before moving to America with my parents for the family business that they expanded. I recently moved to Japan with my boyfriend who I've been with for several years because he had to do work here in Japan and we wanted to stick together. My quirk is called Phoenix Queen. Stella stated, and a lot of the girls wanted details about her boyfriend. She just shook her head and said it wasn't the right time to reveal those details. The girls just pouted and Stella sat down. Soon they were allowed to leave and Stella noticed Aizawa was looking at her when she left. He likely has gotten suspicious based on my little speech from the tests and the fact that I said me and my boyfriend moved here for his work, which would match the pro hero hunter. I wonder, Eraserhead, will you let Izuku down as they did? Stella thought as she left and got into Izuku's car right as he pulled up. Aizawa was watching in the distance but had no way of seeing into the car due to the tiny-nighted windows. Third POV. Izumi Midoriya woke up in the morning to find his girlfriend missing from his chest. He looked at the clock and saw there were about 2 hours before it was time for her to go to school. He got up and decided to look for her, and the first place he looked was the bathroom, and he found her there standing completely naked, and he froze. It's not like they were awkward around each other or haven't done some SXL activities, but they haven't been full-blown NDE in front of each other or gone that far in SXL activities. Neither of them has shown the longing of going to that stage, and they were just slowly moving forward and forward with their relationship as it naturally advanced without rushing it. So, here was Izumi Midoriya standing there with only his boxers on as he saw his girlfriend completely naked when she normally wore a nightgown to bed since she liked sleeping in them. Stella turned around since she finished drying her hair to find her boyfriend standing there almost naked, but then she realized she was completely naked since she got out of the shower. She quickly covered herself and she was almost as red as her hair. This snapped Izuku out of his daze and he turned around. Sorry. I came looking for you since I didn't find you asleep on my chest like normal. I'm sorry I didn't say anything, I was just in a daze at the sight of… Izuku was stuttering now and had a large blush on his face until he felt Stella pressed up against his back, which made him freeze. It's you, so it's fine if you see me like this, but I'm not ready. I'm not ready to go the full way right now since we are still a bit young. She said with some stuttering, and Izuku quickly turned around and hugged her. He rubbed her back and kissed her forehead. It's okay. I'm willing to wait for centuries if it takes that long. We have almost all of the time in the world to take our lives as slow or as fast as we want to. Izuku stated as he kept kissing her forehead. Izuku then picked her up and moved her to the bedroom and pulled some of her clothing and uniform out of the dresser so she could change. He himself started to get change and he took his boxers off in front of her since he had seen her naked. Ikiki, she said quickly, but he chuckled. I get to see you naked right now, so I don't care if you see me either. Remember, we can take it as fast as we want or as slow as we want, but I am comfortable with you seeing me completely naked and I love seeing you as well, my Heim. You have always made me feel comfortable with how my body looks with all of my scars from my childhood, so I have no shame of showing off in front of you. Izuku stated as he slipped new clothing on but still sported a blush. Stella soon finished getting changed as well and they made their way downstairs and Izuku made breakfast for them. Far as I know today is simple, but we do have a battle training at the end of the day. They didn't say who the teacher was, but we know All Might works there with Green Tornado and I think it's going to be them. Stella stated and Izuku nodded his head. I'll keep a crow nearby like normal but kick there but my Heim, Izuku stated, and Stella just giggled, which made Izuku so happy hearing her giggle. God, I love it when I make you giggle, Izuku said, and she rolled her eyes. Soon it was time to go to school and Izuku dropped her off before heading out to do some patrols since he's been noticing a dangerous trend of criminal activity dipping even more. Izuku was afraid of a large attack incoming and decided to warn the UN so they would send a warning to the Japan Hero Commission. Izuku stated that he believed UA would be hit likely due to All Might teaching there and that it would damage the hero's reputation in Japan if the school got attacked while All Might worked there. The UN sent the warning to Japan's Hero Commission, but Izuku didn't know if the school received the warning or not, so he made sure to keep several crows near the school at all times. As Izuku was hunting down criminals and trying to find out what was going on, Stella was going through her day until it was time for the battle training. Stella was sitting in the classroom and she made some friends with a few of the people in the class. She became friends with Jiro, Azui, and Ashido, who she found enjoyable to be around. They would all sit together during lunch and talk about things going on. Stella's even offered to help them with their homework since she was being assigned harder work that was on a level with some college-level work. Nizu had set it up so she would be earning college credits since he had a license to perform such class types. The homework would be given by the normal teachers and he would grade it. If she had any questions, the teachers could help her since they all knew it as well, but a lot of it was self-study at her own pace. The more she finished, the sooner she earned individual college credits. The class was shocked to learn that she was doing that type of work, but accepted it since Stella said it has happened before in UA due to people testing out of the high school level work. As she was waiting with everyone else, she heard footsteps quickly coming, and then the door opened. In came All Might, who did some weird pose. Green Tornado came in as well, but Stella just rolled her eyes and held her tongue. Soon, the class was told to go to the training grounds and get changed into their hero outfits. She did just like that, and after about 10 minutes the entire class was standing in a control room for the same training ground that they took their entrance exam in. You all look amazing in your hero outfits. Now, let's start this training. All Might stated as he started to explain what they would be doing. Some people asked if they would be expelled like Aizawa-sensei does or other random questions. Soon, they were split into teams randomly and Stella saw that she was teamed up with Jiro and they were facing Todoroki and Uraraka. Jiro and Stella started to make a plan as they watched the other teams fight. How good are you with heat? Stella asked Jiro and she said she can handle it for a while. Part of Jiro's suit is heat resistant and has a small cooling system for any support gear she would use, which does cool her outfit as well, which Stella was happy at. I'm a perfect counter to Todoroki's quirk, and Uraraka, we just need to avoid getting touched, which will be easy for the most part. Even if she does, I can form wings with my fire so I can act as a counter to her as well. Stella stated, and Jiro put her head down since she didn't think she would get to do anything. Don't worry, I do need your help. 1 to find them, 2 to help stall Uraraka, and if you can defeat her, I'll handle Todoroki and then we will go from there. Stella said, and Jiro was happier she was actually doing something. They turned their attention back to the fighting and watched as it was Yagi's turn. The match went forward and Stella knew about one for all but was confused on why she was using it so roughly as if she lacked control of the quirk itself. Did she not train with it? Stella thought but put it out of her mind as she watched Yagi fight Kirishima and get defeated by him. Kirishima was at first being thrown around by Yagi's telekinesis quirk, but he hardened his body and used his fingers to claw into the ground and pulled himself so she couldn't throw him around anymore. After she got a bit tired, he then dashed at her and slugged her in the stomach, and even her attempts with one for all were pitiful. She hasn't really gotten any combat training, which is sad considering who her father and mother are. She's too reliant on her quirk. Stella analyzed as she got much better at doing it due to Izuku teaching her. Soon, the fight came to an end and the Kirishima team won. Bakugo had his match as well, and he lost as well since Yaoyorozu was smart enough to make a solution agent destabilize his sweat and make it not be able to explode. As such, Bakugo could only put out light explosions when he sweated and ended up getting tossed by Yaoyorozu. Everyone was shocked at how easily the people they thought were at the top of the class had gotten taken out by other people. That rubbed salt in Yagi's wounds as she visibly deflated a bit. Stella was close enough and she thought she heard something muttered by Yagi about the quirk not cooperating with her. Stella was confused and thought that was crazy that a quirk wasn't cooperating when quirks aren't sentient. Then she remembered Tokyami's quirk is sentient as well, which meant that one for all that had passed several generations could somehow have a sentient mind inside of the quirk itself, which would make sense due to it requiring the will of the current user to pass along. Stella decided that she needed to inform Izuku of those details when she got home that afternoon, but now it was time for her match. Soon she and Jiro went into the training grounds. They were playing the villain team, so they just waited for the hero team to come towards them, and they hid the bomb in a separate room with no windows and only one door. Stella stood in the hallway waiting as Jiro informed her that Todoroki was coming, and right as she said that, ice was shot across the room, but Stella melted it right away. Your ice is useless against me, and so is your fire. For more or less Todoroki, you are quirkless in front of me. Stella stated, and saw the flinch when she stated that, which made her smile slightly. Soon Uraraka came charging, but Jiro went and attempted to deal with her, which she was doing quite good at. Stella though focused on Todoroki and made her fire surrounded him and started to heat him up. Todoroki kept his ice going, but it just kept melting, and Stella just took control of any fire that he put off. Stella was overall the perfect counter to Todoroki in all regards. He couldn't even get close to fight hand-to-hand since she would make the fire hot enough to burn him, and he had to keep feeding ice out to keep himself cool. As she was doing that, she kept an eye on her teammate and saw that she had successfully captured Uraraka by creating a sound strong enough to stun the girl for a brief moment before she tried the capture tape around her. Jiro then came to Stella and she nodded her head. Let's end this. I don't want to kill him after all. Stella then dashed forward with the capture tape out and used her fire to hide her approach. Right as she got up close, she broke the firewall that she had created and wrapped the tape around him quickly before he could even react. The match was called and they were all told to return to the control room. Stella came back into the room and was congratulated by every one of her friends for doing such a good job at taking out Todoroki, and Jiro was congratulated as well. Soon the teachers got everyone's attention back and they talked about how the match went. After talking for a bit longer, they were dismissed and let go for the day since that was the last class of the day. Stella was walking out of the school when her friends that she made came up to her and asked if she wanted to walk to the station together. Sorry girls, my boyfriend always picks me up in the car, Stella stated, and the girls looked at her funny. Stella, how old is your boyfriend since none of us are at the legal age to drive? Ashido asked with a raised eyebrow. She wanted to tease her friend but was also concerned. Stella just chuckled a bit. Don't worry girls. He's the same age as us. He has a special job that provides him certain legal protections and rights that allow him to drive even though Japan's driving age is higher for cars than America. Stella stated, and they nodded their heads as they heard a car pull up in front of them and the window roll down. "Hello, my Heim," the male said in the car, and all of the girls looked at the individual and saw Stella's boyfriend, and they all felt he looked familiar and like they should know him, and honestly they should. Izuku though had changed his hair and eye colors to white like his father, so no one would directly match him to the missing posters. Imagine his hair and eyes being white. "Hello, Ikki. These are the friends I've made in the past few days here at UA. Girls, this is my boyfriend Izuku Midoriya. We've been dating as I said in class for several years now, but we knew each other as friends for years before that as well," Stella stated as she introduced Izuku to them all and them to him. Izuku waved at them and greeted them all. Azui was blunt when she spoke. "So, Midoriya, what do you do for a living since Stella said your work brought you two to Japan? Also, call me Tsu," Azui asked, and Stella coughed at Azui's bluntness. "Sorry, Tsu, but I legally can't tell you since you don't have the ability to know about it. Just know I work for the United States government doing work here in Japan currently, but Stella does know what I do since she was read into my job since she came with me per my request to my employers," Izuku stated, and the girls nodded their heads at his statement and accepted it since Stella did confirm that she knew about his job. Soon she got into the car and they drove away, but what neither of them saw was Eraserhead, who was leaving the campus but was in shock when he saw the person in the car. He was trapped in his thoughts because he was sure he saw Izumi Yagi, but the hair and eye colors were completely different. Did he get a quirk to change it? Vermilion, said Izuku Midoriya. So let's see if I can dig into that, but I think it might be good to inform Nizu though, since I don't want to scare him away if he is my nephew, Aizawa thought as he turned around and headed into the school building and went straight for Nizu's office. He soon arrived at Nizu's office and just walked straight in without even knocking, which shocked Nizu a bit. "Nizu, I think I might have found him. I think I found Izuku," Aizawa stated, and Nizu choked on his tea. "Explain." Nizu stated, and Aizawa informed him of what he saw and heard about a so-called Izuku Midoriya. Nizu sat there in thought and decided to inform Aizawa of his theories. "I think the pro-hero hunter is Izuku. Also, if I remember correctly, the last name Midoriya is the same as the most powerful businessman in America. The thing is, how did they meet and Izuku ends up like this?" Aizawa just keeps an eye out on Stella, and this is Izuku Midoriya. You might be right, and Izuku had someone change his eye and hair color. With the power and money that Hisashi Midoriya in America has, it would be easy for him to find someone with a quirk to do it, Nizu stated, and Aizawa nodded his head. They felt so much hope with the likelihood of them finding Izuku once again, but the question is, how big of a change has he gone under since he left and now returned? Nizu though was glad that Izuku seems to have gone down the path of being a hero, but the question is, how did he get a quirk? And Aizawa wanted to know that as well, but they would have to wait to get their answers for now. Third POV. Izuku Midoriya was not a man easily angered. Izuku could get annoyed and upset, but true anger from him was hard to come by. There are only a limited number of people that have achieved truly angering him, and that list contains Inko Yagi, Toshinori Yagi, Izumi Yagi, Katsuki Bakugo, and Shoto Todoroki, but now it contained a few more people on that list since someone decided to touch what belonged to him. Someone decided to touch Stella Vermilion and threaten her life, and now Izuku Midoriya was truly angered. That is what Izuku felt when he came to the UJ and found his lover, his future wife, his soulmate harmed and injured with the rest of her class at the hands of villains with one of those creatures created by the doctor. It was at that moment that the doctor earned a place on Izuku's SHT list and was going to end up dead if Izuku had his way. However, let's explain how we got to this point, shall we? Izuku had gotten up that morning to feel the embrace of his girlfriend against his chest. Izuku had taken to just sleeping naked over the past few days with Stella since they had seen each other naked already once. Stella threw a fit about him doing it, but in the end accepted it, and Izuku could tell that she secretly enjoyed it since she decided to get naked as well, and they both just started to sleep like that for the past few days. They never got SXL with any of their actions, but just enjoyed the warmth of each other's bodies. Now, Izuku enjoyed waking up to the sight of his lover on his chest in full view, but today he felt off. as if something was going to happen and he decided to be prepared for it. He looked at the clock and saw that there were several hours before Stella would need to go to school. As such, Izuku got out of bed and started looking over all of his quirks and making sure he could easily summon them up to be used quickly since he felt as if something was going to happen. As he was doing that, he also called and warned his UN and American contact about his feeling of something happening today. Now, for a normal hero, they would take the advice with a grain of salt since they could be wrong, but Izuku wasn't a normal hero. Instead, he was a special agent and he had all for one. His warnings were not to be ignored. As such, the UN sent Japan's Hero Commission a warning to warn all of their hero schools of a potential attack. However, they warned Izuku that they were unsure of if Japan's Hero Commission had sent the warning out even though the UN ordered them to. Stella soon woke up and found Izuku mediating. Stella broke him out of his meditation and they got dressed quickly and enjoyed breakfast before Izuku dropped her off at the school. Before she got out of the car, Izuku gave her a warning. "Stella, just be careful today. If you go off campus or anything, alert me so I can watch via the crows since I feel a lot of tension in the air today. Something is going to happen," Izuku stated, and she nodded her head and gave him a kiss before getting out. "See you later, Ikki," she said, and he waved back before driving off. Izuku decided to go do some hunting of criminals and see if he could lock down his gut feeling of why he was on edge today. As he was moving about, he learned via Stella that reporters had gathered outside of the school shortly after Izuku had dropped her off and were making a fuss about All Might teaching at the school. Stella and Izuku were both glad that they had always dropped her off about an hour early since she wanted to work a bit on her self-paced college lessons and homework. Izuku thanked her for the information and continued about his day. Overall, Izuku was again striking out. He was capturing a large number of criminals, but none of them had any information until one small-time thug did provide some clues. The thug spoke about an organization called the League of Villains that was gathering up an army to do a large attack, but that he didn't know where since he had bailed on it. Izuku tried to get more out of the man, but he didn't have much except that the organization said that they had a perfect weapon for dealing with the heroes through the thug had no more useful information. Izuku ended up turning the man over to the police and reported to the UN and American officials about what he learned. He was currently on a phone call with them as he was sitting on a ledge of a tall building. "Good day or night to all of you depending on where you are at. I've learned a possible name for the organization based on a thug I had captured. I've gotten as much as he could provide, but I was right about an organization gathering for a possible attack on heroes. The organization is called the League of Villains, and not much is known at the moment except that they are gathering an army to attack heroes and that they have a weapon that can deal with the heroes easily." There wasn't much of a description of the leaders since the man couldn't remember it. "I'm assuming someone in the organization has a quirk that allows them to cause some form of memory loss to help hide their operations," Izuku stated, and the officials asked how he was sure that the weapon was the same as the creature from New York. Izuku confessed that he had zero proof, but that it was weird that a villain organization would have some so-called weapon that was capable of dealing with the heroes when they were still gathering a large army. It would be weird if they had a large number of these weapons on hand for them to still gather an army. "My guess is they have a limited amount right now, and this is their second test run of using the weapon after learning from New York. The villain army is to ensure the weapon doesn't get taken out too easily and to contain most of the hero's time while the weapon does the most damage," Izuku stated, and the officials thought it over and had to agree that Izuku's assessment was a valid one. As such, they recorded the information about the possible organization and told him to report once he had more. As Izuku hung the phone up, he received a text message and memories from the crows at the same time. The alarms at UA had been triggered and the front gate destroyed. Izuku teleported right away to a building near UA and looked at what was going on. He saw the press pushing into the campus and causing problems. They shouldn't have been able to get in. Them destroying the gate would cause more trouble than good for them, Izuku thought as he had a crow watching Stella from the windows to make sure she was okay. He also sent her a telepath message telling her that he was outside the school and that it was just the press. He then received a text message thanking him. Izuku just sent a message back telling her to be safe, but while he did that, he reviewed the memories that he received from all of the crows around UA and saw something off in his memories. He saw a man touch the gate, but his crows weren't in a good position to get a clear view of the face. Izuku only saw that the male had a light skin color and light blue hair. Izuku watched the man in his memories as the man put a hand on the gate with all 5 fingers and the gate started to decay. Interesting. A 5-point contact decay or disintegration quirk. Izuku thought as he kept reviewing the memories, but then he noticed the man just disappeared with what looked like purple mist floating in the air. That confused Izuku on why that would be there and how the man disappeared in thin air, but soon the heroes of UA got the situation under control and forced the media out. It was at that moment that Izuku moved behind Nizu, who tensed up at sensing someone behind him. The heroes turned around quickly to be met with Hunter. "Well, hello, Hunter. May I ask why you are here?" Nizu asked, and Izuku handed him a paper with a drawing on it. It was a drawing of what he saw from the crow. Nizu looked it over and his eyes widened. "Is this the one that destroyed the gate?" Nizu asked, and this caught all of their attention as they looked at it over Nizu's shoulders since he was so small. Izuku wrote out an anti-air message saying that indeed is what he's seen, but the man disappeared somehow in the crowd, so the man had a partner that has some sort of teleportation quirk most likely. Nizu thanked Hunter for the information and asked if there was anything UA could help him with, and Izuku nodded. He wrote out another message that said he would come by in a day or so to read Nizu in on a case that he would like help with, since he's tracking an organization called the League of Villains here in Japan that has some experimental creatures that they are making to kill heroes. Nizu and the teachers all tensed at reading that, and Nizu said he looked forward to being read in on the case and helping bring the organization down. Izuku nodded his head and dropped into his shadows and disappeared. Aizawa spoke up after Hunter left. "Is it possible that the organization is connected to the attack on the gate?" he asked, and Nizu shrugged. "Cone, and I think Hunter would have told us if he had any idea if they were connected at this point," Nizu stated, but reminded Aizawa that his class at a rescue training at the U.J. Aizawa nodded his head and asked if All Might was already there or not. "He is with Green Tornado. So, it will be you, 13 All Might, and Green Tornado all there for the rescue training, so if anything does happen then it should be fine," Nizu stated, and Aizawa nodded his head as he left to go to his class. Soon though they would learn that the teachers they sent weren't going to be enough to stop the threat that was going to be coming for them and their students. After an hour and a half passed, the students of 1A were on their way to the U.J. They were all in their hero outfits and sitting on the bus. Hagakure decided to strike up a conversation, and the topic was Stella's boyfriend, which caught the attention of Aizawa since it could give him and Nizu some more clues. Hagakure asked what her boyfriend did, since she was guessing he wasn't in a hero school since he didn't go to UA. Stella smirked at that statement. "My boyfriend works for the American government in a way. He was sent here to Japan for work that I can't talk about, but Jiro, Tsu, and Ishido have all met my boyfriend for a brief moment when he picked me up," Stella stated, and Ishido jumped in the conversation. "Indeed, and I must say that he appears to be a gentleman, and I'm really curious about his job since it grants him the ability to drive even though he is the same age as us," Ishido stated, and that caught everyone's attention since they knew you couldn't drive a car in Japan unless you were. Aizawa was just connecting the dots and knew that the hero license gave some more privileges but not enough to legally drive unless the American government pulled some strings, which were possible, but that would mean that Izuku was highly valuable to them. "Stella, what was his name again?" Tsu asked, and Stella spoke up. "His name is Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya, and he's actually Japanese, but he moved to America with his father at a young age due to his family situation," Stella stated, knowing what she was doing since Izuku had given her the okay already to start leaking some information. They both knew that Izuku's true identity would get out sooner or later, so Izuku wanted Stella to have some fun with it and leave the people in his past dying to know more information. Yagi, Todoroki, Bakugo, and Aizawa all widened their eyes when they heard the name and that Stella's boyfriend was from Japan during his childhood. Aizawa texted Nizu the new information, which only just reaffirmed their theories that Izuku Midoriya is Izumi Yagi. However, they couldn't do anything at the moment with it since Aizawa and 1A arrived at the U.J. This would set of a list of changes and make many secrets be revealed and old scars uncovered that many thoughts were closed. This was going to be the changing point of many people's lives. Third POV. The students of 1A walked out of the bus to find the rescue hero 13 All Might, and Green Tornado. The students were happy to see all of their teachers, but they didn't know what was going to be waiting for them in a handful of minutes. Stella had texted Izuku that they had arrived at the U.S.J. for the rescue training, and Izuku sent back a text message saying that he moved crows in that area to keep a watch out. However, unknown to the students and the heroes, their lives would be drastically alerted moving forward, but first, they had to listen to the rescue hero 13 give his introduction and the important things to do during rescue training. Quirks are dangerous. They can harm people, and humans have always been good at weaponizing the tools we are given to harm others regardless of their ages when they are provided the tools. Sadly, we see this all of the time as other children abuse the power against those that are deemed weaker, or adults taking their frustrations out on those less fortunate or those that they are meant to care for. However, I love teaching how to use the tools we are given to rescue, to help, to save people instead of just fighting. 13 said, and her little speech had several blows aimed at the Yagis, Bakugo, and Todoroki. She's been a fierce opponent at the 3 children being accepted in UA and the 2 adults Yagis being allowed to teach at UA. The 2 adult Yagis known of 13 views, but it didn't make it easier to take the insults each time 13 sees a good chance to do it. Once the speech was over, they all moved into the building and were getting ready to start the training when the lights flickered. They all wondered what was going on until a portal started to open up in the middle of the plaza. One student talked about how cool it was to have fake villains, but Aizawa shouted at them all to get back and that those are real villains. 13. Guard the students with Green Tornado while I and All Might deal with the villains. Aizawa stated as he prepared himself to fight and took a position at the steps with All Might. All Might leaned over and whispered to Aizawa, "Eraserhead, I only have an hour of time. I had to stop and help with a few crimes early today before arriving at UA. We can't draw this out." All Might stated. Eraserhead rolled his eyes and cursed the man next to him. Course you did. Just can't stop being a hero to others and be where you are needed the most, can you, All Might? Eraserhead stated as he watched the villains pile in. They had a large army of villains and some weird creature. Aizawa saw the strange creature and his thoughts went right back to the case that Hunter had discussed with Nizu. Well, it's the League of Villains. Eraserhead stated, and All Might and everyone looked at him confused. Oh, you know of us? The man in the crowd stated as he scratched his head. Indeed. I've heard a bit about you. That creature. It's meant to deal a lot of damage to heroes. I also know you're the one that destroyed our gates today, and I'm assuming you used the guy next to you to teleport out of there after that. I'm also assuming that's how you figured out our trip here, since you used the gate attack as a distraction. Am I wrong? Eraserhead stated, and the man with the hands chuckled out and broke into laughter. You're correct. This is a bioengineered weapon made to kill All Might. The man stated, and everyone but Eraserhead thought he was crazy. All Might be, Eraserhead started, but All Might already charged the creature and started to exchange blows. Idiot. Eraserhead thought as he jumped down to fight the mob of villains. The other 2 teachers started to make the students leave, but they wanted to stay since they thought they were safe with All Might there, but they were in for a rude awakening when the warp user teleported in front of them all and attempted to warp them all away. Bakugo and Kirishimiya attacked the villain like idiots, which caused 13 to halt her attack. This allowed the villain a small time to warp a lot of them away to the different zones of the U.J. before Green Tornado used her quirk on him and tossed him away from the students. The warp user tried attacking again, but Ida had escaped under orders from the teachers to warn the school. 13 used her quirk on the villain, but the villain redirected the attack onto 13, which caused her injuries. 13. Green Tornado yelled out as she tried to defend the students. She used her quirk again on the villain, but he just kept warping away even though she would grab the metal brace. Her quirk wasn't the best to stop this villain since he just could warp out of her telekinetic hold. As this struggle was going on, the students were all in their own fields of the U.J. Stella herself was thrown into the water zone with Tsu and Yagi. As they regrouped on the ship, they could hear the sound of fighting going on in the main plaza and could see the shockwaves from All Might and the creature. All Might was an idiot to charge that creature. He didn't want to hear any information from Aizawa-sensei, who knew something about the creature. Stella stated, and Yagi looked like she wanted to defend her father but kept her mouth silent since she had to agree it was kind of stupid to charge off. Sue, can you grab Yagi and jump to the shore? I can fly myself across, but first I'm going to heat the water to a level that the water villains can't handle. Stella stated, and Sue nodded her head as she grabbed Yagi and jumped. Stella then formed fire wings that looked like wings of a phoenix and hovered over the water for a bit as she turned the heat up and started to make the temperature of its increase to a point that they all got knocked out unconscious due to the rapid increase of temperature. After looking around, Stella headed to the shore where Yagi and Sue were both at, and when she arrived she was disturbed by the sight she saw. She saw Eraserhead on the ground bloodied and All Might on a knee with BLD running down his face. He was still in his hero form, as Stella would call it, but he was exhausted and he was not winning the fight. Even Green Tornado had come down to help, it seems, and she had a lot of wounds on her, as well as she was near Eraserhead and had pulled him a bit away from the fight while still on guard and dealing with any of the thugs that got up to try and harm them. A lot of the students also have made it back to the plaza, and they were all in shock at the sight before them. No one knew what to do with what they saw before them, as they saw the symbol of peace on a knee in front of the villains. We will finally deal with the so-called symbol of peace, yelled out the man with hands. Suddenly the warp user appeared next to the main villain leader and made a report. Tamura Shigaraki, a student escaped, but overall we win if we kill the symbol of peace off now, stated the warp user. Kurojairi, if you weren't my way out of here, I would kill you now, stated the man now known as Shigaraki. No matter. We indeed have won this. We just finish off the symbol of peace before the heroes arrive to save him. Though, before that, how about we destroy his pride? Let's kill some of the students, Shigaraki stated as he ordered the Nomu to attack Stella, Yagi, and Azui. No! All Might yelled as he tried to get up and defend the students, but he fell over due to a wound that caused him too much pain. They all feared for the worst when a dust cloud was created, but then the Nomu went flying past them all and landed near the villain leader. Everyone was in shock as they saw someone standing in front of the students. Who the hell are you? Yelled out Shigaraki, but the question was answered by Eraserhead, who stated the name. Hunter. They belong to the League of Villains. The enemy has shock absorption and a regeneration quirk from what we know of, yelled out Aizawa, and Hunter nodded his head. Hunter then turned to the students behind him, and Stella looked at him. Go to the steps and take your teachers with you, including All Might. The school has been alerted and will be here soon. Move now, Hunter stated, and Yagi looked ready to protest, but Stella pulled both girls with her to the heroes and started to pull All Might away towards the other teachers. All Might tried to resist, but Stella had none of it as she had Sue use her tongue to lift All Might and move him away. Sue just obeyed her, and soon they were all at the other teachers and helping them move a bit away. Flashback 5 minutes ago, Izuku was moving about the city when he had a rush of memories from the crows. The crows were reporter that the Class 1A was in danger and under attack. Izuku looked through the memories that he received and was stunned. A creature like the one from New York was at the UK. Damn it. All Might didn't even listen to Eraserhead. Demon fool. Izuku thought as he looked for a crow near UA's main building. He knew the student would take too long to get to the school and warn them, so he was going to do it first before going to the UA's, since he was sure they could hold out for a few extra minutes. As such, Izuku ordered a crow to move closer into UA's to get a clear view of the staff room. Izuku was in luck as Nizu was in the staff room with some other staff members. Within a few seconds, he teleported into the room and scared all of the staff into a fighting position. Why hello, hun, Nizu started but was cut off. Get to the UJ now. It's under attack by the League of Villains and they brought one of the weapons. Send as much help as you can because All Might is not winning, Izuku yelled as he disappeared. Izuku was right, and All Might wasn't winning as Izuku saw Aizawa get attacked by the beast and All Might was thrown away and was now on a knee in front of the beast. It's one thing if the neglectful idiot dies, but it's an entire thing to endanger my Heim, Izuku thought as he used a crow to teleport right in front of Stella and tank a hit from the creature. Flashback, and Izuku heard the information from Eraserhead and nodded his head in thanks and told the students and Stella to get All Might and the other teachers and leave. That creature packed a punch. That thing without a doubt can kill All Might and could do some damage to me, but it's still weak overall compared to me as long as I don't drop my guard. Izuku thought as he analyzed the situation. Soon all of the students got to the plaza and Izuku looked at each of them. He just prayed none of them decided to get involved in the fight and complicate the matters at hand. So your name is Hunter, right? What are you, some vigilante? Asked Shigaraki, and Izuku shook his head. No, I am a pro hero out of America that has been hunting your organization for the last trail run you guys did in New York with a creature much similar to this Nomu. My mission brought me here once we tracked the leads down, and I've been hunting you down and recently found clues to your group. I can see why you are having so much luck. You have Kurogyri after all as your transportation, which complicates matters on tracking you down. Izuku stated, and everyone was confused on how Hunter knew the Warp Man's name. Kurogyri raised an eyebrow and felt like he had a connection to the pro hero in front of him. Who are you? I don't believe we've met. Kurogyri asked, and Izuku chuckled. Of course we haven't met. I was just born shortly around the time you were created. Don't worry, you don't need to be a puppet anymore. Kurogyri, teleport yourself to XXX, and wait for me there. Hunter stated, and Kurogyri surprised even himself as he followed the order. Everyone was in shock and looked to Hunter for answers. Even the villains were in shock. Surprise. Don't be. Kurogyri wasn't ever meant to be on your side. He was meant to have free will, but an accident happened and he was never fully healed and memories restored before his accident. Though, I will take care of ensuring he gets the proper care when I am done here. Izuku stated, and Shigaraki started to rage and ordered the Nomu to kill Izuku. Izuku just chuckled as he dodged the attacks and created a sitch out of his shadows and started to cut the Nomu up. The man-villain just laughed as the Nomu just healed from all of the cuts and kept attacking. Izuku though was just waiting for an opening to land critical blows and end the fight. As they kept fighting for a handful of minutes, the thugs all got back up from being knocked out and looked at their leader. Shigaraki screamed in a rage since the Nomu wasn't ending the fight. Doesn't matter. All of you thugs get up and deal with the heroes. And you stop playing around and kill Hunter already. Shigaraki yelled out as the thugs all got up and started charging to the students and teachers that were down still. Izuku though created clones of himself out of the shadows from the trees nearby, and they all got in front of the thugs and stopped them from moving forward. Do realize I am the MSTR of shadows. I can do so much with them that my mind is the limit. Izuku stated as Shigaraki only got more said with Izuku interfering. Soon though Izuku landed a critical blow and had sliced off both arms as Izuku jumped on the back of the Nomu and drove spikes of shadows into the body, pinning it to the ground as the shadows wrapped around the body parts where Izuku had cut the arms off to stop it from regrowing. It can't regrow if the path is blocked. Izuku stated as he tightened his hold on the beast as it tried to break free. Demon, this is stronger than the one in New York. It's resisting far more than the one back then. Izuku thought as he held on tight with his shadows. How the hell? Shigaraki complained. Heroes always find a way, villain. Good job, Hunter. All Might said as he moved towards Hunter. Izuku felt his stomach drop as he knew All Might was about to do something really stupid, and Izuku was right. Go away, All Might. I don't have time to listen to you right now. Izuku called out, but All Might just waved him off. It's fine. We've won, haven't we? Now we just have to deal with the thugs and main leader, which will be easy to do since their weapon is taken out by your shadows. All Might said as he slapped Izuku on his back in a congratulating manner which broke Izuku's concentration. The shadows broke for only a split second, but it was long enough for the Nomu to regrow its arms and break free. God damn it, All Might. Izuku yelled as he pushed All Might out of the way of the blow and took it head-on, and they all watched as the Nomu grabbed Izuku's head and blasted off towards the fountain and slammed him into the fountain itself, breaking it. Third POV. Everyone was frozen until they heard a laugh. Thank you, All Might. I almost lost there, but now the hero likely died or is greatly injured due to your screw-up. Even I know not to break the concentration of someone holding down AF powerful enemy. That's like basic 101 stuff. Shigaraki stated as he was laughing out. Everyone looked at All Might, who had a face of horror on since he likely just got someone killed due to his idiotic actions. Stella on the other hand knew that Izuku was just going to be even more unforgiving towards his family for that move of All Might part. Though she wasn't worried about Izuku dying, she still was going to be sad with him for getting even the slightest bit injured. Soon the laugher came to a halt as the Nomu was sent flying backward past All Might. This is another reason I don't like you, All Might. You don't learn to not be an idiot. Izuku yelled out and everyone was shocked at what he stated. All Might flinched at the tone that Hunter used, but then it turned to shock when the dust cleared. Several other people gasped out as well as they saw the dust cleared. Oni-chan. Izumi stated in shock, and the entire class and teachers looked at her. Todoroki and Bakugo also were in shock as they fell to their knees next to Yagi. They were in shock at seeing their former childhood friend standing there as a pro-hero somehow. Son. Green Tornado stated, and All Might wanted to move towards Izuku, but Izuku just launched past him and into the Nomu as he made a scythe again and started cutting at the creature again. Though, a few seconds later the doors burst open with all of the teachers standing there with Ida from one. We are here with reinforcements. Ida called out as they all looked down to see Hunter fighting the creature and All Might and the others wounded. Though those that knew of Izuku were in shock to see him, Nizu though snapped out of it. Teachers protect the students and someone help Hunt dash, he was saying, but got cut off by Izuku yelling as he stabbed the creature in the head with his weapon and ripped the entire head off. Come back from that. Izuku yelled out and the Nomu just fell to the ground and didn't regenerate since Izuku had damaged the brain in his attack when he ripped the head off. No. How dare you? Shigaraki yelled out and Izuku just looked at him. You lose. Izuku stated and the villain screamed in anger, but the next moment something happened. The villain coughed up some sort of sludge and disappeared. Damn it. Another teleportation quirk. How many of those do they have in their hands, for the love of God? Izuku raged out and slammed his scythe into the ground, cracking the ground. Son. Izuku heard and he turned around to find Inko Yagi and Toshinori Yagi. Oh, F off will you. Izuku stated as he just walked by them and sent Stella a mental message saying he will see her back in UA soon since he's going to have to face them, but he needed to alert America that he's been found out by them all. Stella nodded her head without others noticing and Izuku walked towards Nizu. Nizu. Izuku said and Nizu looked at him. Izuku, you can still call me uncle all you want. What can I do for you? Nizu asked and Izuku calmed himself for a moment. I'll see you back at UA in a while. I need to take care of some matters and make some reports to my bosses back in America. Also, let me know how Izawa is when you get a report on him. I'll see you in a while. Izuku stated as he just walked out of the building and Nizu didn't try to stop him. Instead, Nizu stopped the Yagi family and others from going after him. Nizu just gave them a glare which made them back off. Soon, Izuku teleported back to his and Stella's home. He tried to calm himself down, but seeing those people and them calling him son made his anger boil. He was just glad Stella wasn't injured. Izuku decided to just make the calls quickly and be done with it. As such, he made a group call to his father, the president of the American Commission, and the official from the UN. After a few rings Hisashi answered, then the Commission president, and then a bit longer the UN official answered. Update, UA just got attacked but it's over now. I arrived in time to save All Might from getting killed since he was an idiot. Anyway, the League of Villains is without a doubt connected to the Doctor. They had one of the creatures which are now dubbed as the Nomus. This new one was easily able to take All Might on for many reasons, but also because he's an idiot and can't think outside of the box. The Nomu does have a weakness and it's the brain. Destroy them then they stop working. Izuku stated and Hisashi asked if Stella and everyone else was fine. Yeah, they are. I arrived on time. I mean within the split second that the Nomu was about to kill Stella and 2 other students, but yes. Just in the nick of time. Also, Commission President, I need you to renounce my Japanese citizenship. The Yagis and everyone knows that Hunter is Izumi Midoriya aka Izumi Yagi. Sadly, All Might screwed me when he decided to slap me on the back when I was containing the demon Nomu. It broke out in a split second of my concentration breaking, so it landed a blow on my head which broke my mask in half, which allowed them to see my face. Anyway, I won't hide it anymore, so please send the paperwork so they can't touch me with the Japan courts or legal system. Izuku stated, and the commission president said he would have it sent right away, and the UN official asked if Izuku knew if the school received the warning from the Japanese commission, and Izuku said he was doubtful that they did. Izuku was told to read Nizu and whoever he thought needed it into the case so it could move forward faster since the League of Villains was getting bolder. The UN would also send a representative to obtain the Nomu to be secured since the Japanese commission wasn't really trustworthy currently. Sirs, I most likely will work out of UA moving forward. For multiple reasons. First, it will be easier with UA's resources at my hands. Second, to help protect my girlfriend from any retaliation from my previous life individuals since they will be said that I will refuse to go back with them. Third, I want to torment All Might and the others. Izuku said with a slightly dark tone, and Hisashi reminded him to not let his anger consume him. You know Stella will keep me in line, father. Also, I plan to reveal the fact that I am All for One's son most likely since they will try to shift the Noma stuff onto you. This means that All Might will know where to look for you, so just stay in America, okay? Izuku stated, and Hisashi agreed since he didn't want Japan blaming him for this SHT. The UN said they would be granting Hisashi immunity in regards to his past since he's been a good boy and has been a contributing member of society. In all honesty, they just didn't want Hisashi going back to his past life because All Might threw a hissy fit and attacked him. As such, they issue a blanket immunity that could only be revoked if he went back to his old ways. As such, none of his past crimes could be held against him to the shock of both Izuku and Hisashi, but they just laughed because All Might's face would be so enjoyable, but Hisashi was still advised from going to Japan due to All Might being there and having a large influence. This was to avoid an international incident and public argument over the UN having to defend the issue of immunity if he tried to push it. Soon, the call came to an end and Izuku had changed into his normal clothing. Izuku looked at the clock and realized it's been about 40 minutes since the attack. Izuku changed his hair color to white just to F with All Might when he meets Izuku again, and Izuku just sported a grin on his face. DMN. I get Dad's sadistic tendencies. Izuku thought as he got into the car and drove towards UA. Imagine white hair and white eyes. As Izuku was driving, he received a text message from Stella telling him that all of the students arrived back at UA and were in the classroom. Stella did warn Izuku that everyone was questioning Yagi about Izuku and they were trying to figure him out. Izuku just chuckled a bit and sent a message back that he was currently headed to UA and that he would be coming with his white hair and eyes, so she better be ready to be involved in the mess of his past family. She just texted back that she would always support him no matter what stood in their way, and if she has to, she will burn them all. Izuku just chuckled at that message and texted back that he loved her and couldn't wait to torment All Might with his father's looks. Third POV. Izumi Midoriya was not a man of cruelty, but he was without a man of piety revenge. So there he was sitting in the car seat outside of UA with his white hair and white eyes. Izuku decided to take a breath and look at himself in the car mirror. Well, here we go. Izuku said to himself as he sent a mental image to Stella warning her that he was at the school and would be coming inside. He then got out of his car and walked up to the gate, which had some police and reporters standing at it. Izuku just used a crow to teleport inside the school campus and at the front door. He opened the door and walked in and made his way through the hallways. After a few minutes, he arrived at 1A and opened the door to find all of the class there with a police detective that he recognized as Detective Tsukwachi. Nizu and Aizawa were also in the room, but Aizawa was covered in bandages. Stella must have helped heal him a bit, though her healing ability takes a lot of energy if she uses it on another person. Izuku thought. The class looked at him and Ashido recognized him quickly. You're Stella's boyfriend. Your name? Wasn't it Izuku Midoriya? She said, and then everyone thought of Izuku Yagi and how close the two looked to each other with just different color hair and eyes. Indeed I am, and I can guess most of your thoughts. I am indeed formally known as Izuku Yagi. Don't ever call me that since I hate my previous family and would rather watch them die than save them, but Stella would be pouting at me for letting someone die in front of me when I could save them. Izuku stated with a blank expression. Everyone was shocked at his statement, but Nizu and Aizawa figured that was an accurate portrayal of Izuku's feelings towards his family. Stella just rolled her eyes and got up to kiss Izuku, which she did, and Izuku kissed back. Izuku then turned to Nizu and Aizawa. Uncles. It's been a while. Izuku stated and they nodded their heads. Aizawa moved over to Izuku and Izuku tensed a bit but was shocked when Aizawa hugged him. Good to see you, nephew. I am glad to know you're safe. When you get a free moment, I want to catch up with you. Aizawa said and Izuku nodded his head. Indeed, we have a lot to catch up on but we also have work to get to, Nizu stated as that reminded everyone about the events. Indeed, also Uncle Nizu, my boss is back in America, approved to have you and anyone else I deemed needed to be read into the case file about the League of Villains, Izuku stated and Nizu nodded his head. Thank you for that. I would like the detective read in as well but I am also curious how you became a pro-hero at such a young age but that can be talked about later on. Students, you are all free to go now. Nizu stated and asked Izuku to follow him to the meeting room. Stella, come join us. You already know everything, Izuku said and she just got up and followed him to the meeting room. Yagi and the others tried to ask him questions but Izuku just outright ignored them and anything they said. Soon, they all made it to the staff room to find All Might, Green Tornado, Endeavor, Gran Torino and Sir Night-Eye. All Might went pale when he saw Nizu and the others walked in because he was sure he was seeing a ghost of his old enemy. God. I enjoy seeing that expression on his face. It pleases me for all the SHT done to me in the past. Izuku stated as he sat down with Stella next to him. Even Inko was in shock at seeing Izuku. Son, you look like... She was saying before Izuku cut her off. I look like Dad. Yeah, I know and I'm enjoying Asmite's facial expression right now at seeing it. Anyway, All Might stop wasting your time and drop the form since Stella already knows about it. Izuku stated with a slightly cold tone though Inko didn't really understand why Toshinori was pale since he was still in shock. All Might though did drop to his skinny form. Endeavor did a fake cough to break the tension. Hello, nephew. It's good to see you again but what happened to your green hair? He asked and Izuku said all would be revealed as they progressed which they all nodded their head at. All Might was running through so many thoughts in his mind and was freaking out. You'll also like reincarnated as Izuku Midoriya, male reader. 5K upon the untimely death of an F/N/L/N, the boy is transported into an alternate universe of My Hero Academia, where he takes the place of Izuku Midoriya. Will he see a hero of grace? Dikaike 8K. This is the story of Izuku Midoriya, otherwise known as Dikairu. Izuku meets All Might 3 years earlier than UA and this leads to him gaining OFA sooner. This allows high worries Bakugo, Dadzawa K7KTW, suicide, harmful thoughts, bullying, cursing, no smut. Just prefacing here, Inko Midoriya does not get hurt or die. All Might tells Izuku that he can't be a hero on H. The verdant analyst 8K after his father kidnaps him and forces him to steal quirks he's forced to run away. Izuku Midoriya gets a job. On top of that he is a vigilante. Will he be able to BAL 8 stars of destiny? What if everything was different? What if All Might found Izuku as a kid abandoned and decided to take him in as his own kid and give him OFA? What if Izuku was trained? Izuku Mugen. The chaos of infinite K9K. Izuku Mugen, formerly Yagi, never had a happy life. His father, Hisashi Midoriya, died before he was born. His mother, Inko Extreme, married Toshinori Yagi. All Might and the symbiote hero, Vinoku K. In this alternate universe, compared to the original, everything started out the same. Izuku Midoriya being classified as quirkless, leading him being bullied and harassed. Anyway, let's start. Nizu stated and they all nodded their heads. Early today we got attacked, which proved to be a distraction as a group known as the League of Villains used it to get information via a warp user named Kurogiri. They stole information and launched an assault on the UJ, where they had a creature capable of beating All Might, as you can see in the video behind me. Nizu stated as he showed the video. Those not involved watched it carefully and were shocked at what they saw and how Izuku dealt with it when All Might couldn't. Soon the meeting pushed on and Izuku asked Nizu a question. Nizu, did the Hero Commission of Japan warn you about the attack? Izuku asked and they all looked at him in confusion. I take all of your faces as a no. Lovely. It seems the commission held the information about a possible attack back from all of the schools. I will need to report that to my superiors. Izuku stated, and Nizu asked for more details on that. I observed signs of a possible attack appeared before the actual attack. I had also gained some information about an actual attack, and I assumed that it might be on the schools. As such, I sent the information to my bosses, who made sure to inform the Japanese commission, who seemed to not have delivered the information to you all to increase your security and watchful eyes. Izuku stated, and Nizu made a note to look into the fact that they never got a warning. The heroes were not happy with the commission when they learned of that. Soon they moved on to talk about the leaders of the attack and the creature that they used in the attack. Izuku, where is 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐵? Aizawa asked, and Izuku just looked at him. I will deal with him privately. He was nothing but a puppet that couldn't disobey orders. I'll have him free of the control soon, and he can return to his life. Izuku stated without really answering the question that was asked. Son, he's still a villain. He needs to go through the court system, and if it was deemed that he was truly unable to disobey, then he would be handled with that in mind. All Might stated, and Izuku glared at him. First, don't call me son. 2, I said I will handle it, and I will. 3rd, you have no legal means to go after him since he's under my protection. Izuku stated with a glare at All Might, who shut his mouth quickly after Izuku's tone. Nizu was interested in how the villain wasn't under their legal authority and had asked about it. Izuku just took a hero license out and slid it over to Nizu, who picked it up and was shocked. You're a special agent hero? Nizu asked as he looked at Izuku, and everyone's eyes widened when they heard that. Izuku nodded his head and took the card back as Nizu slid it back to him. Indeed, as such, Japan has no legal means of going after 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐵 since it's under the UN's authority, since I am here for this case which he's involved in. As such, you will not pursue the matter regarding him. Izuku stated, and everyone nodded their heads at that. Soon, they talked about the next person, who they all deemed as a man-child. They all believed there was a person in the background leading the organization, and Izuku kept silent at that part since they didn't get to his case yet. Now, they were on the Nomu. It has multiple quirks from what was seen in the fight. Regeneration and shock absorption. Many others most likely as well. Aizawa stated, and Nizu nodded his head. All Might then talked about All for One and how he's the only one that can do multiple quirks. I thought I killed him all those years ago. But it seems I was wrong. This is troubling if he's targeting me and UA by default. All Might stated, and everyone was tense. Izuku just shook his head, and Nizu noticed this and called upon him to share his thoughts. First, it's not All for One. I and my bosses already know who is behind it. Izuku said as he pulled the case file out and slid it to Nizu. It's a doctor called Kyudai Garaki who is about 100 or so years old. He has a quirk that gives him a youthful appearance, but his mobility is limited due to his quirk. Izuku stated as Nizu projected the file information on the screen. The League's done one attack before in New York where I ran into it and defeated it. We discovered it had multiple quirks together and multiple human DNAs due to human experiments of the DNA being put together to create these nomus. It took us a while, but we tracked the DNA back to Japan, which led the search back here, which got me sent and stationed in Japan until this case is over and the doctor is either captured or eliminated. Izuku stated, and the heroes took the information in. All Might though spoke up about there still being a chance All for One could have a hand in it since the doctor is over a century old. The doctor indeed worked for All for One, but All for One cut tie over a decade ago when he quit being a villain. Izuku stated, and everyone turned to him in shock when he said All for One had quit as a villain. All Might wasn't having it and said the man could never stop his evil plans. All Might, I think I would know more than you since I lived with him for several years. He is my father after all. Izuku stated, shocking the room, and Izuku just enjoyed All Might's facial expression. Sir Night Eye and Gran Torino were also pale as well on learning of that fact. How? All Might asked. That's easy. When a woman and a male, in this case Inko Shimura and Hisashi Midoriya, get together and screw each other, then they create a baby. Out came me, and then Inko here decided to screw you not even months after you attempted to off my father after he gave up a life of crime and he was on the way home with milk that day. Izuku stated, and Inko was in shock, and All Might be in shock at learning that Inko's last name used to be Shimura. Indeed. You screwed your mother figure daughter. She had Inko several years before her son, who she also gave up for adoption. Anyway, Dad had no idea. Inko was a Shimura at the time due to her last name being Aizawa due to the adoption. Izuku stated, and everyone didn't know how to deal with the information that they just learned. The ancient evil had a child with Inko, who then had a child with All Might. Wanna know what's best? I have an advanced version of All for One as well. I wasn't quirkless to begin with, but my quirk activated at BRH and he took it, so I didn't kill myself with it, since a baby with that quirk would have been chaotic. But sadly you attacked him, which meant he couldn't give my quirk back until years later when he found me after I ran away. Izuku stated, shocking everyone about his quirk, since he's really only showed one that was related to shadows, but in fact, it was multiple combined. Izuku was just enjoying the facial expressions of everyone in the room. All Might was in shock. He was sad, he was a mix of emotions. DMN. I am enjoying this more than I thought I was. I guess years of neglect and abuse does that to someone. Izuku stated as he rolled his eyes, and that statement just hit them again. Gran Torino spoke up. Izuku, he said, and Izuku looked at him. Grandpa, or do you not want me calling you that, knowing whose BLD runs through my veins? Izuku asked, and Gran Torino got up and walked to Izuku. Izuku was ready to be attacked, and Gran Torino could see that in Izuku's posture. DMN idiots. You caused him to be on guard to his own family. Gran Torino thought. He just reached up and hugged Izuku, which shocked him. First, it's good to see you again, and yes, you can call me Grandpa still. Even if his BLD is in your veins. Gran Torino stated, and Izuku nodded his head. Dad is sorry for killing the past users. He's had time to think about a lot of his past since I was born. He regrets nothing on All Might though, since he's learned how he treated me. Dad is still wondering how he fell for Inko, which I've always wondered as well. Izuku stated, and Stella just rolled her eyes at Izuku. Gran Torino didn't know how to feel about All for One, but it seemed he was a better father to Izuku than All Might was, so that was the best he could ask for. I don't know how to feel about that, but I will accept it. You matter more to me. Where is he? Gran Torino asked, and All Might looked up at that. Izuku just rolled his eyes at All Might. He's back in America, since that is where he's lived for after the last fight with All Might. He is the wealthiest man and most influential business leader in America. The government does know about him as well, and they gave him a license to use his quirk to keep some criminals in check. He has to report any quirks he takes, but they use him to keep the more bloodthirsty villains tamed down, since he would take their quirks. Izuku stated, and Gran Torino nodded his head. All Might gripped his fists. So he's enjoying life. All Might muttered under his breath. Izuku wanted to just beat the man, but he made a promise not to give in to his anger. I don't know, All Might. You seem to have enjoyed your life when you decided to neglect me for being quirkless, even though you were quirkless as well. Ironic one for all is causing your daughter issues in usage. It would be quite a shame that the past users don't accept her for the SHT she did to me now, wouldn't it? Oh wait, they are doing just that. Izuku stated with a smirk, and All Might was confused about the past user's remark, but Izuku didn't give him any more information. Anyway, don't even bother going to America to try and arrest him. The American government wouldn't allow it. Nor could you arrest him if he came to Japan. He does have immunity after all that was granted by the UN. As long as he keeps his nose clean, then all of his he pulled as All for One can't be held against him. Izuku stated with a smirk, and All Might was set at that and slammed his hands on the table. Inko told him to sit down, and he looked at her, but he gave him a glare and told him to sit down. Izuku was laughing now out loud until he heard a voice from behind him. I think you enjoyed tormenting him enough for today. Rein it in, or you're sleeping on the couch tonight. Stella said, and Izuku paled quickly and turned around and begged to not sleep on the couch. Come on, Haim. I got years' worth of neglect to make up for. Can I keep going for just a bit longer? He asked her, and she just rolled her eyes. No, and that's final. If you keep pushing it, you're on the couch, and we both know you hate sleeping on it. You can torment him another day, but I think you got to talk more about the actual case instead of tormenting him, no. Stella stated with a smile that Izuku knew that she wasn't taking anything but acceptance to her decision. As you wish, Haim. Just don't kick me to the couch. Izuku stated, and she nodded her head, which made him sigh in relief. He then turned back to everyone who looked at him as if he had grown a new head. What? I'm not stupid enough to get kicked to the couch. I am pleased to be a whipped man. Izuku stated as he puffed up his chest with pride, and all the males in the room rolled their eyes. Izuku then got back on track with the conversation. Anyway, the doctor is responsible for making the 𝐻𝐽𝐽𝐻𝐽. When my father or I put a second quirk in people, they don't look anything like the 𝐻𝐽𝐽𝐻𝐽's quirks do with our quirk vision. Our quirks also can't take the quirks out of the 𝐻𝐽𝐽𝐻𝐽's. Instead, they just end up breaking down if we attempt to do so. Izuku stated, and Nizu and the detective wrote notes down. The staff and detective started to ask questions about anything he knew. Izuku answered anything and everything he could. Soon the meeting came to an end and they were done. This meeting is over for now unless anyone else has something to say. Nizu stated, and Izuku spoke up. In regards to any information of this case about All for One or my quirk and so forth in that regards is deemed need to know the information. Meaning you're not allowed to spread it without my approval. You may share the information that is directly about the 𝐻𝐽𝐽𝐻𝐽's and the doctor but nothing else without seeking my approval. Everyone understand? Izuku asked, and they all nodded their head. Soon all of the staff left, which left Izuku and everyone from his past. Anyway, I think it's time for me to go, so yeah. Izuku stated as he got up to leave, but Inko called out to him. Son, wait. You should come home. Inko called out, and everyone else besides All Might knew that was the wrong thing to say. Izuku scoffed. I already have a home with Stella, and if I went anywhere else it would be back to America with Dad. Also, stop calling me son. You have zero legal rights over me since your custody was removed from you by the courts in America. Izuku stated, and Inko was shocked and asked what he meant by her rights being removed. I mean that you have zero parental rights over me. The courts deemed you unfit to be my mother and stripped you of your rights. Full custody was granted to Hisashi Midoriya in the U.S. courts, and my Japanese citizenship was renounced, so Japan's courts have zero say over my custody. Izuku stated. All Might spoke up at that and said they had no right to revoke her custody since Izuku was born in Japan. You are wrong. Inko and my father were married after all, and they were married in America. As such, I am a child that falls into their jurisdiction when he discovered her. The courts didn't require her to be present due to the danger she represented to my life. As such, they reviewed my memories of my life and granted the divorce since Inko had an affair and got married in Japan to you, which voided her marriage in America. Since she voided the marriage, it only gave Hisashi more legal standing about my rights, but my memories of her neglect and Izumi harming me all of the time sealed the deal. She was deemed unfit. Izuku stated, and that silenced All Might and Inko, who were in tears now. Aizawa had gotten up and looked at Inko. This was going to happen regardless. I warned you that day you called me about him running away, and I learned of your treatment towards him that I would remove him from your care. You have no one to blame except yourselves. Aizawa stated and waved for Izuku to follow him. Aizawa, Stella, and Izuku were in the hallway walking away. Izuku, first off. I owe you an apology. Nizu, Endeavor, Gran Torino, Sir Night Eye, Recovery Girl, the detective, and I all trusted their words, but I should still have done more than send you presents. I should have been more involved in your life, but that was my mistake and not yours. So, I am asking if you would be willing to let me be involved in your life moving forward, or if you just want to keep me as a colleague as pro-heroes. The choice is yours to make. Aizawa said as he bowed his head. Izuku stood there in silence. He then looked at Stella, who nodded her head. Izuku knew he wanted more of his family involved in his life, but he didn't want those members involved. I'll give you a chance, uncle. Here's our address where we live. I'm normally out on patrols while Stella is at school, and I also do patrols during the late night/early morning since I got quirks that make it possible to go on 24/also. I have a surprise for you. Are you free for the rest of the day? Izuku asked him, and he nodded his head. Izuku told him to come to the address in the next house or so, and he would find the surprise. Aizawa said he would be there, and they separated to go on their way. Third POV. After Izuku left them all, Aizawa returned to the meeting room to find All Might and Green Tornado down in their spirits. Aizawa, though, decided to kick them while they were down. So Inko, you decided to not only to sleep with the former number 1 villain but to sleep with the number 1 hero. Any other number 1s you going for, or is that it? Aizawa asked with a wave of his hand. Inko rolled her eyes at her adoptive brother who she's on bad terms with now due to her neglect of Izuku. All Might though spoke up. I still can't come to grasp that Izuku's is the son of that man. Like of all people it had to be. The man that killed my MSTR is the father of my stepson. All Might stated, still somewhat in denial of everything. Nizu just drank his tea as he watched the entire thing go down. Gran Torino just spoke up though. I don't like the fact either, but guess what? From the looks of things he was a better father than you were to Izuku, so we should just be glad Izuku still became a hero instead of seeking revenge on your buttes for his childhood, because let's be honest, it was a real strong possibility. Gran Torino stated, and everyone else nodded their heads even though they didn't like the all-for-one issue. They were just glad to have Izuku back for the time being. Nizu looked at Aizawa and saw the paper in his hand. Aizawa, what's the paper? Nizu asked, wondering what it was since he didn't leave with a paper in his hand. This is their residence. Don't even ask, you two. I promised him that I wouldn't tell you two, and for everyone else, I'll ask him if he doesn't mind you knowing, but that means keeping it from these two or the 3 idiotic brats. Aizawa stated, and everyone nodded their heads at that statement, and Aizawa told them that Izuku had some sort of surprise for me at their house, so in the next hour or so he was going to head to their home. They all talked a bit longer before Aizawa decided to head out while the Yagis went to find their daughter. Endeavor followed along to grab Shoto and to take him home. All 3 of them arrived at the classroom to find all of the students there still. What are you all still doing here? All Might asked in his buff form since he was moving about where people could see him. Everyone said they wanted to try and find more out about Izumi Midoriya. Well, you're out of luck since Izuku and Stella both left already, so I suggest for you all to go home. Endeavor stated, and they nodded their heads as everyone but Yagi, Bakugo, and Todoroki left. Izumi then looked at her parents and asked about her brother. Sweetie, let's talk about it when we get home because that's a complex topic. We've learned a lot of things that we didn't know beforehand, like some secrets about your brother's biological father being a villain, which I didn't know when I had married him all that time ago. Inko said, and Izumi and the 2 other boys were shocked since they didn't know about Izuku being from a different father. The parents realized they didn't know but agreed to tell them when they got home, but Endeavor stopped them. You know, that Izuku told you not to spread the information since it was a part of the case. This would be considered breaching it, you know. Endeavor stated, and the 2 adult Yagis tensed up at that fact. All Might said something on the lines of surely Izuku wouldn't mind his sister learning of it, but Endeavor shook his head. If you even think of telling them and actually do it, I will inform him and you two will be in legal trouble. You would be breaking numerous hero laws if you tell them, since Izuku deemed it need to know at his approval only, and remember he has more authority than you both. Endeavor stated, and they nodded their heads in defeat while the 3 kids were confused about what was going on. Izumi, we will say what we can, but a lot of information we are blocked from talking about without your brother's approval. All Might stated, and Izumi wanted answers but had to accept it based on the look Endeavor was giving her parents. Now, outside of those individuals, Aizawa was arriving at the address that Izuku had provided him. He pressed the buzzer and the gate before him opened up. He drove his older car up the driveway and soon was shocked at the house he found. DMN. The kid is being taken care of quite well if this is the house his father is providing for him here in Japan. Aizawa thought. Soon he parked his car and walked to the front door and knocked on it. He heard the door open to find one Kurogiri from the League of Villains. Aizawa went on guard right away but was told to stop by Izuku, who came up to the door behind the villain. Uncle. Come inside. Izuku said and brought his uncle into the house. Aizawa was still on guard though. Problem, nephew. Why is there the villain from the U.S.J. in your home? You said you had a surprise for me, and I don't think this is a good surprise, since they tend to be good in some way. Aizawa stated as he kept an eye on the villain who just sat down on the couch. Izuku just chuckled. It is a good surprise, we just haven't unwrapped the said surprise itself. Izuku stated, and then in came one Hisashi Midoriya. Now son, stop tormenting him. Hello, Shoyuda Aizawa. Hisashi stated as he came in from one of the open wall areas. Aizawa was freaking out since this individual just called Izuku his son, which meant it was all for one. Hisashi Midoriya, I assume. Aizawa said as he shook Hisashi's head. Indeed, thank you for being one of the very few that had shown care towards Izuku in his childhood. Now, I think it's time for the surprise, don't you? Hisashi said as he sat next to Kurogiri. Aizawa was just confused. Oh, sir. It's been years since you brought me back to life, but I am confused about what is going on. Kurogiri asked Hisashi. Hisashi just nodded his head as he looked at Aizawa with something in his eyes that seemed like regret, but that just confused Aizawa. Indeed. The thing is, Kurogiri, you weren't meant to be a puppet as you turned out to be. You were meant to be fully revived to your old state. To our former life when I revived you via that quirk I used all those years ago when I found your dead body. However, the process didn't go as I planned, so I had to turn you into this until I found the correct quirk to finish everything. Today, I am here to finish the process and allow you to return to your former life if you wish to. Do you want to? Hisashi asked, and Kurogiri's eyes widened as the best as mist could. I've always wanted to return to my former life. I would get small shots of my past life and I want to find them. I want to find my friends that I left behind. I want to continue our dreams again. Please return me to my former self. Kurogiri asked, and Hisashi nodded his head. This is going to be painful, but I need you to hold on. Izuku could do this, but I started this and I should finish this. Hisashi stated as he placed his hand on the metal brace and started the process. Aizawa just stood there and watched as the mist man named Kurogiri screamed in pain, and he was conflicted if he should stop this, but he didn't know what was really going on. That is when it happened. When Aizawa's eyes widened at what he saw. He saw his friend from UA who had died years ago. Aizawa was in shock and was wondering what the hell was going on, and then he snapped out of his thoughts when the screaming stopped and there sat his friend Oboro Shirakumo in full view. Good. That was painful, Shirakumo stated. He then tried to stand up but fell on his butt in the seat. Be careful, your mind is still adjusting, so give it a minute or two, Hisashi stated, and Shirakumo nodded his head. Anyway, I think there is someone you want to say hi to, Hisashi stated as he motioned to their side, and Shirakumo turned his head and saw Aizawa standing there. Yo Shota. How are you doing? Shirakumo stated, and Aizawa just moved over and smacked his head. What the hell do you think I am doing? I am standing here confused on how my dead friend is now alive in front of me, so someone needs to explain. Problem, nephew. Explain now. Aizawa said as he turned to Izuku, who just chuckled. It's simple really. Dad here found your former dead friend soon after my BArch, and took pity I guess on him and brought him back, or tried to. It didn't work as he hoped and had planned to finish it, but All Might found him, which meant that Dad never got to finish, and he lost track of him for years until I found him at the U. J. Dad took pity because your friend gave his life for children, and Dad had just seen my BArch recently at the time, which made him feel a connection to Shirakumo here, who got brought back. Izuku stated, and Aizawa turned to Hisashi and just bowed his head. Thank you, Aizawa said as he then moved and hugged his now alive friend and broke into tears. Hisashi said it was fine, and then they let the two catch up. After about 30 minutes, Hisashi spoke up again. So there are some matters to talk about. Legally, you are dead in Japan. I did make some arrangements, and the American government has created a new life for you as the same named person in America with the same BArch date and everything, but just in America. Now the issue is, what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to become a hero like you used to, or do something else? That will determine the next steps. Hisashi stated, and Shirakumo thought it over. I would like to be a hero again. I want to join my friends, and I think I can be more helpful in that field since I have two quirks now. My BArch 1 and the Warp 1. Shirakumo said, and Hisashi nodded his head. Okay, then you will need to go to America with me. I will train you for a PRD of time to ensure you can pass the hero exam in America that I will pay for you to take instead of via a hero school. This way you can return once you have the license and not get in much trouble. It's possible you might also be given a special agent license if they request you due to the warp quirk. You would be just like my son with his special agent license. Hisashi stated, and Aizawa hated the fact that he would be separated from his friend that he just got back. Don't worry Aizawa, Remember, your friend here has a warp quirk, which means he can just warp to your home every few days to spend time with you. You all just need to figure a schedule out. Hisashi stated, and Aizawa smacked his head, forgetting that, which earned laughs from everyone. Anyway, it's time for me to return to America. How about you both go to Aizawa's home and call your other friends that will want to see him? I will return in a few days to retrieve him, or you can call me when you're ready to head to America and I can just give you the coordinates to my location. Hisashi said, and they all thanked him. Hisashi then hugged his son and told Izuku goodbye. See you, son. Don't get on Stella's bad side and get kicked to the couch again. Hisashi said, and Izuku groaned at that comment. Aizawa and Shirakumo both left to Aizawa's home as well, which left Izuku and Stella alone in their home. Good job controlling yourself today, Iki, Stella said, and Izuku just hugged her and thanked her for the support. Soon they made their way in the kitchen and prepared dinner. Third POV. The next day came and Izuku knew that Stella didn't have classes since the school was cancelled until the next Monday. Izuku decided that he wanted to enjoy time with Stella. As such, he took her out for several days' worth of fun in Japan to see the sights across the nation from Tokyo Tower to Mount Fuji. Izuku wanted Stella to enjoy her time off, and he was sure she was, as Stella was laughing or smiling nearly the entire time as they explored Japan's sights. However, it all came to an end when it was time for Stella to return to UA for school. Izuku had decided that he was going to go and speak to Nizu about getting a job on campus, since a lot of the staff would be involved in the case he is working on and the detective would be leading the police side of the case as well. As such, Izuku woke up early on Monday and got his hero outfit set out. He was glad that he had spare masks and outfits on hand, since they only provided so much protection since he had quirks to provide it. Izuku then saw that Stella woke up and he enjoyed the sight of her waking up and stretching. Izuku walked over to her and kissed her on the lips as she leaned into the kiss. Hello, Haim. I always enjoy the sight of you waking up. Izuku teased as he glided his hands across her waist, which made her blush hard. Iki, you are being perverted, she said with a small pout. Izuku just chuckled and lifted her up and took her to the bathroom and sat her down in the tube so she could get ready for the day. He then went back to his work and finished preparing his clothing and outfit, but also got a set of clothing out for her to change into. Soon they finished their morning routine and got changed. Izuku just wore his hero outfit since he was going as the pro hero hunter and not as just Izumi Midoriya. They got into the car and drove off, and Izuku texted his uncle Aizawa that he needed to park his car in the teacher's parking lot since he was driving and wanted to talk to Nizu. Aizawa said that he would be waiting there for him. As such, Izuku arrived at UA to find Aizawa indeed waiting, but with Shirakumo with him as well. Izuku parked and looked at Shirakumo and then at Aizawa. Aizawa understood the hidden question and spoke up. Yeah. I didn't tell Mike or Midnight. I wanted Shirakumo to myself for the night. They can have him all day today since I got to deal with the problem children. Aizawa stated, and Izuku rolled his eyes. So what are you going to ask Nizu? Aizawa asked as they all walked towards the main building. Izuku thought it over and just decided to tell Aizawa. I'm going to ask him if I can become an employee here on campus, but my main focus will be on the case. I want to bring the doctor to an end soon, and the sooner I do, the sooner I and Stella return to America, but we might wait until she graduates and decided what to do from there, since she's already made friends here, and I don't want to take that away from her since she didn't make many friends since she spent all of her time with me, who was a lonely kid since I didn't go to school. I had issues with dealing with other children due to my childhood, and Stella is honestly the only one to break my walls since I fell for her at first sight. Izuku stated and admitted that he fell for her so quickly, and Aizawa just chuckled at his nephew's love life. Aizawa nodded his head and told Izuku that Nizu would likely hire him as something simple, though Aizawa didn't know of Izuku's degrees. Soon they made their way to the staff room and they entered, and the room went dead silent. Mike and Midnight were frozen in place, and Nizu was in shock at seeing a previous student alive. Even Inko was in shock since she attended UA during the same years as Aizawa and knew of her adoptive brother's dead friend. Yo from beyond the grave, Shirakumo stated, and Mike fell over and Midnight fell to her knees. Nizu looked at Izuku for an answer. Izuku, I feel like you have an answer for this, he asked. Izuku nodded his head. Everyone meet Shirakumo aka Kurojiri. I called Dad over to my home from America so he could help me finish the process of reviving him since he didn't get to finish the process roughly after I was born since All Might attacked him. Izuku said, explaining how it all happened, and Nizu nodded his head. Overall, 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐵𝐲 will be going with my dad to America soon so he can get a hero license and likely become a special agent as well due to the warp quirk, which is going to be powerful for a special agent. Dad wants to train him to make sure he knows everything before he has the exam set up, then 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐵𝐲 can return to be with Aizawa and everyone else. Izuku stated, and Nizu nodded his head and then looked at 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐵𝐲. 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐵𝐲, if you are in need of a job after getting your license and all, then you are welcomed at UA so you can be near Aizawa and the others. Nizu offered, and 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐵𝐲 thanked him for the offer and said he would let him know once he has the license and everything completed. All Might himself didn't know what to feel since he just learned he screwed a man's life up since he had attacked All for one, but he was glad that the man was healed up now. Anyway, Uncle Nizu, I wanted to ask you for a job for a while since a lot of your staff will be on the same case as me. I also want to spend more time with Stella. Izuku asked as he gave a copy of his resume to Nizu, who looked it over and choked on his tea. How? Nizu asked at reading the resume. Everyone looked confused. I had a lot of time in my childhood due to all the neglect and bullying. So I studied a lot and just tested out of all my elementary to high school. Once that was done, Dad set me up with college classes out of the Ivy League school in New York where I obtained my degrees and got my Ph.D. in quirk science, and I'm working on the second Ph.D. as well in business management since I helped Dad run the business empire since I was a bit younger. Izuku stated, and everyone was shocked to learn he had a Ph.D. when some of them didn't even have a MSDR's degree. Oh, I also have a teaching certificate in America, though I'm unsure if they transfer to Japan, Izuku stated, and Aizawa broke out into laughter which confused everyone. God, that's hilarious. All Might, the child you neglected is far more successful than your but. He's even gotten a teaching certificate when you still haven't gotten one, and yet you took on a teaching job. Aizawa stated with a huge smile as he mocked All Might, who just grumbled about being mocked by his coworkers. Izuku just rolled his eyes and looked at Nizu. I can certainly hire you on. We are actually in need of a quirk specialist, which you fit perfectly. It also doesn't require you to be around all the time, which means you can work on the case during the day as well. You just need to set a schedule of when you will be on campus so students can seek you out for advice to train their quirks. Nizu stated as he pulled out a contract for Izuku to sign, but Izuku looked it over via the quirk he copied from Seth King, the family lawyer. Izuku then understood everything in the contract and crossed out sections he refused and gave it back to Nizu for him to initial where he crossed out. I'm not agreeing to those terms. Remember, I have multiple quirks and one includes understanding contracts, and I'm not stupid, Uncle. You might have gotten your staff with those contracts, but not me. Izuku said, and everyone looked at Izuku confused, and Nizu snickered a bit and explained what he hid in the contracts, which included taping their phones and almost everything else. How do you think I always know what you're about to ask of me or something else? Nizu said, and they all paled at the realization they signed away so many of their rights to their evil but boss of a rat. Izuku shook his head at his uncle's schemes. Nizu soon made initials next to everything and dated it, and Izuku did the same, and then he signed the contract. Stella, it's time for you to get to class anyway with Uncle. Nizu owes me an entire private office as agreed in my contract. Izuku stated, and everyone threw their arms up in protest, but Nizu said they should have negotiated it since Izuku wrote it into the contract for him to agree to. They just all grumbled about being tricked, but Nizu gave them a friendly smile that meant for them to shut up. Stella just rolled her eyes at them all and leaned up and kissed Izuku before leaving with Aizawa to class. Mike and Midnight took 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐵𝐲 off to go enjoy their time before they had to go to their classes, which was the second PRD. Nizu though took Izuku to his new office location so he could set up a bit. Inko and All Might tried to talk to Izuku, but he just ignored them and didn't bat them an eye. Soon Stella and Aizawa arrived in their classroom, and the students tried to ask Stella a lot of questions, but Aizawa shut it down. He then spoke about how their fight wasn't over yet and that they had the sports festival to do. Stella wanted to wipe the floor with Yagi, Bakugo, and Todoroki in the festival, but wouldn't let pettiness blind her. Soon Aizawa got into his sleeping bag and tried to sleep. Need to ask Iki if he could give Aizawa the power nap quirk. Stella thought as she watched the man try to sleep even though he was dead tired. When the class was given a free period, all the students surrounded Stella to ask her questions about Izumi Midoriya, aka the pro hero hunter. Really? Stella muttered as she rolled her eyes. What do you all want to know? Stella asked them all, and Yagi asked the first question. How did you meet my brother? She asked, and Stella looked at her before speaking. First, I suggest never calling him your brother in front of him. He still hates you a lot for what you and your friends did to him before he ran away. Second, I met him in Central Park of New York when he saved me from some bullies that had claimed the local land or something stupid like that. Stella stated as she answered the question. Izumi flinched a bit at the mention of what she did but kept silent. The next question was from Tsu, who asked what did Yagi do to get hated by her brother. Before Stella could even consider answering, Aizawa spoke up instead. Yagi, Bakugo, and Todoroki decided it was a good idea to physically and verbally bully Izumi Midoriya, formerly Izumi Yagi, due to him formerly being quirkless between the ages of 4 and 9 since he didn't have his quirk. His parents, aka Green Tornado, and his stepfather all might neglected Izuku for being quirkless as well. However, their crimes got covered up because of their ranks. Aizawa stated as he had sat up and spoken it all out. He refused to let the three kids hide their actions. Everyone turned to the three individuals and was staring at them in shock. The next person asked a question and asked what Izuku's quirk was. His quirk is special and is currently hidden, but you could consider it on the lines of a copy quirk since it had that ability. The shadows are what he uses the most of the copied quirks. Stella stated, and it wasn't a lie since it was true. His quirk had a copy feature, and of the copied quirks he uses the shadows the most. Aizawa, who knew the truth, smirked at the white lie, which really wasn't a lie at all. Soon the lunch party was called and they all got up to leave and go to lunch, but the door was crowded by students from other classes. Hello, what can we do for you? Stella asked. One boy with purple hair spoke up and said that they were there to declare war on Class 1A and they would be aiming to unseat them and take their position in the hero course. Stella nodded her head and wished him good luck and that she wouldn't go down easily, so he better be prepared for a fight. Then a boy from 1B came over and called 1A arrogant because they survived a villain attack. We will kick all of your buttes and show that 1B is better. Especially better than this pathetic-looking woman in front of me. Stated the blonde-hair kid to Stella, and Aizawa knew the kid screwed up when he felt killing intent and knew who it was from. Everyone was scared at the feeling they received. Oh, you think they are arrogant, but you can't even handle this little killing intent. They faced a monster that was within a few blows of killing All Might until I arrived and dealt with the beast, and yet you stand here calling my woman pathetic. You really must be looking to die at my hands. Stated the voice, and everyone turned around and were met face to face with the pro hero hunter, but Class 1A knew it was Izumi Midoriya. The blonde kid though really must have wanted to die since he opened his mouth and asked who Izuku was. Who the hell are you? You claim that All Might was close to death and that you dealt it, but no one knows of you. Stated the boy that was from 1B. Ah, indeed you wouldn't really know who I am because people like me tend to stay in the shadows where there are far stronger people than All Might hide at. I am a special agent hero. Anyone know what that stands for? Izuku asked them, and the purple-hair kid from General Studies raised his hand. It means you have higher authority than most heroes. You handle special assignments that the government and the UN deem as a big threat, and you likely kill threats that are deemed too dangerous to keep imprisoned. Stated the kid. Izuku nodded his head and spoke. He's correct, but there's a bit more to it. You see, special agents are limited in number since the missions we handle always have a risk of death, so nations only make them every once in a while. Most special agents are special in some way that they can threaten entire nations. A handful of us can easily kill All Might, and there are threats in this world that could easily fight All Might, and we are the people that deal with them. However, I am the pro-hero hunter from America whose case has recently involved UA since the people I'm hunting has attacked the UJ where 1A was at. That's right, people that a special agent like myself are hunting down attacked 1A, and they did well in handling themselves against the lower thugs that were there, but the big threat that I dealt with was within a few blows from ending the symbol of peace himself. However, I can say that my girlfriend Stella here is quite capable of fighting me for a decent amount of time, so I would be careful if she decided to lash out. She's here at UA since my case brought me to Japan from America and we wanted to stick with each other. Any questions? Izuku asked and no one raised their hands. Izuku looked at Stella and told her that it was time for lunch. Before he left he turned to them all with one more thing. Oh, one more thing. I am also the same age as you all, but I'm already a pro hero and starting today I am now a teacher here as well for part-time. Hello, my students who I will enjoy tormenting. Izuku stated with a dark chuckle and that scared them all to run away. The purple-hair kid though slowly turned around and walked away. That kid is interesting. I might see if he wants to learn some things from me. Izuku stated as he and Stella walked away. Stella nodded her head since she also found him interesting since he was unaffected by the small amount of killing intent that Izuku had let out. Third POV. Izuku finished having lunch with Stella. Their lunch went without much fanfare as much of 1A was too scared to go near Izuku currently and only Stella's friends had the courage to go near them and sit down at their table. They didn't feel scared going around Izuku since they met him for a brief time before and they knew Stella would stop him from doing anything to them. As such, the lunch went by without interruption even though Izuku could see his former sister and her friends were looking at him most of the time and wanted to try and talk to him. However, Izuku had no intentions of getting involved with his past so easily or forgiving her either. As such, once the lunch came to an end, Izuku decided it was time to go hunting for a personal student. First, Izuku made a stop at Nizu's office to confirm that he would have no issues taking the student on as a personal student and that he wasn't violating any school rules since he was now an employee. Nizu thought it over and shook his head and said that it was completely fine for Izuku to take on the student. Okay, good. Well, I'm going to go kidnap him from his classes then. Izuku said as he got up to leave and Nizu just rolled his eyes at Izuku's antics and wished him good luck on getting the student to agree. As such, you could find Izuku walking down the hallways searching for the homeroom that Shinso was a part of. After some searching, Izuku found the classroom and knocked on the door and was called in. Everyone in the classroom froze at who appeared at the door. Even the homeroom teacher present Mike was frozen. Hello, Hunter. What do you need? Present Mike asked as he was going over the details for the sports festival. Izuku looked at him and then looked around the classroom until he found who he was looking for. Izuku then walked over to Shinso and present Mike paled. What did you do, Shinso, to catch his attention? Present Mike thought as he just watched. Shinso tensed up and thought he said the new teacher off due to earlier actions during the day. Mike, moving forward until after the sports festival is over. Shinso will not be coming to class. He's my new personal student since I am going to train him for the sports festival. Izuku said as he grabbed Shinso things and smiled under his mask. Mike just paled a bit since Izuku was far stronger than All Might and somehow got interested in his student. Please just return him alive after the festival. I don't need to do the paperwork for a dead student. Present Mike stated and everyone in the room including Shinso paled at his words. Izuku walked away with Shinso things and turned back to him. Are you coming or not? I won't offer personal training for the sports festival a second time, so if you decline then that's it. Izuku stated and Shinso was still frozen in shock but snapped out of his thoughts when present Mike tapped him on the shoulder and leaned down. I suggest you go. You will increase your odds of succeeding in the festival if you learn from him. Present Mike whispered and Shinso bolted up and to Izuku at that statement from present Mike. As such, Izuku led Shinso away to a gym that Izuku asked Nizu for personal use. Shinso kept silent the entire way and was confused about where they were going but knew he was still on campus. They entered some forest area and walked for about 5 minutes until they reached a building that was separated from most of the campus. They walked into it to find an older-style gym and training equipment. From now on you will be coming here the moment school starts. Don't even bother going to the homeroom or anything else. You will get your lunch and then return here after you're done eating. We will be working during the entire time we can to get you as best prepared for the sports festival as we can so you can move into the hero program. Do you understand? Izuku asked. Shinso looked at Hunter and asked why. But why are you training me? Shinso asked confused on why a pro hero like Hunter would want to train him. Izuku looked at Shinso and then removed his fox mask since he was still in his hero outfit. Why indeed? For many reasons. First, when you were all in the classroom doorway of 1A, you were the only student to not even flinch when I released a small amount of killing intent. Well, except Stella, but that's to be expected since she is my girlfriend and deals with me 24/7. You have some good willpower to withstand that since I can make a lot of people, even grown adults, flinch and step back at the amount I had released on all of you. Izuku stated, and Shinso's eyes widened a bit and now understood what that ill feeling was from earlier in the day when he saw Hunter. Izuku thought it over for a bit. He lacks self-worth a bit due to his quirk being viewed as villainous. Izuku thought so he decided to reveal the truth of his quirk. Second reason. What do you think my quirk is? Izuku asked, and Shinso was confused since he didn't know much about it. He did hear it had something to do with shadows and he said what he knew. You would be right to a point. Now let's talk about your quirk brainwashing. Izuku stated, and Shinso tensed a bit. You have lived a life with being looked down upon and scorned. I know the feeling quite well. You were told your quirk is villainous and they are so wrong. It's not the quirk that is villainous but the user that determines it. Do you think I am a villain with my quirk? Izuku stated and asked his question, and Shinso stated he wasn't. Even though my quirk can steal yours and leave you quirkless. Izuku stated, and Shinso's eyes widened. He couldn't believe what he was hearing and he didn't think a quirk like that existed. How does that even exist? Shinso asked, and Izuku chuckled. It does. My father has the quirk as well, but mine's a bit different. Our quirks are called All for One. It's also a name of a villain, which is actually my father's old villain name when he was a villain for the past 200 years or so until he quit when he had me. My quirk allows me to copy, steal, give, and combine quirks at my will. Do you think this quirk makes me a villain? Izuku stated, and Shinso said no. Then why would you be a villain since my quirk is the manifestation of greed itself? Izuku asked, and Shinso started to feel a sense of pride in his quirk and in himself. Izuku then told Shinso his entire story to help build a connection with Shinso, so he understood that Izuku completely understood being looked down upon, being neglected, being scorned, and that Izuku wouldn't do that to him. So Shinso, does that answer the question of why I want to train you? Izuku asked, and Shinso nodded his head, and Izuku smiled. Good, it's time we get to training then. We have 2 weeks to get you as trained as we can, but I admit I'm going to cheat it a bit since I'm going to use multiple quirks on you to help us push forward and get better results. One of the quirks that I am going to use is called Power Nap, which grants us both a full night's rest if we sleep for 30 minutes and I have skin contact with you, so I just need to hold your hand or have it on your shoulder or something. The second quirk is called Growth Aspirement. This quirk allows me to trick your body to increase your metabolism and body growth to speed up the rate of muscle growth and muscle memory. But this means you need to consume a lot of food to maintain the energy you will need, or it can get risky for your health. Izuku stated as he explained the 2 quirks that he was going to be using on Shinso. Overall, you are going to feel like you are going to be dying for a good portion of this training as we need to get your body in better shape but also teach your quirkless combat since you can't rely on your quirk. You are not me where you can just SWCH quirks if someone figures out a weakness to it. I also want to train you in support gear, but it's pointless right now since you can't use support gear unless it directly aids you medically for your quirk. Izuku stated, and Shinso nodded his head. Get in the ring. Let's start on what you already know for combat so I can see what I am working with, and take your shirt off as well. Izuku stated, and Shinso did as he was told, and Izuku removed his hero outfit top as well, revealing all of his scars, and Shinso knew of them since he was told, but still seeing them all was hard. What did they do to you? Shinso thought but had also said it out loud. They used me like a disposable toy. That's what they did to me, and now they want back in my life, but I don't want them. Shinso, if you ever are in an unsafe situation, then tell me, and I will use my authority and power to ensure you are safe. Do you understand me? Izuku stated, and Shinso nodded his head. His foster parents weren't the best, but they never laid a hand on him. They only gave him the basic needs, which were honestly enough for Shinso, so he didn't complain since they never harmed him. Izuku though stared at him and spoke. I also mean if your parents or whoever you are with aren't doing their job in caring for you as they should. Do you understand? Izuku asked. And Shinso gulped and nodded his head but wouldn't look Izuku in the eye, which made Izuku make a mental note to look into it later on. Anyway, let's start. I want you to throw a punch at me, Izuku said, and Shinso tried to throw a punch but Izuku just grabbed it and flipped him over. Yeah, that was horrible. Let's just start from basic positions, Izuku said as he made Shinso get into a fighting position and then Izuku corrected it. They kept doing this for 4 hours until Stella came into the gym. Hello boys, she said, and Izuku saw her and jumped out of the ring and told Shinso to take a break, which made Shinso fall on the ring mat in exhaustion since Izuku worked him hard. Stella just rolled her eyes at the sight since Izuku was not easy to train under. Izuku walked over to her and gave her a kiss on the lips and took a water bottle from her and sat down with her. How is it going? Stella asked him in regards to Shinso. Izuku looked at Shinso and thought it over. It's going. He should be at a decent stage when it comes time for the festival. I am wondering if you mind him coming to the house since I want to get as many hours of training in. We would use the gym in the home to keep training and then have him spend the night in one of the guest rooms for the next 2 weeks. Izuku asked her and she thought it over and nodded her head and agreed to it. Izuku then got up and walked over to the ring. Shinso, would your guardians mind you staying at my house for the next 2 weeks to train? Izuku asked, and Shinso looked at him in confusion but nodded his head. They won't care, so it's fine, Shinso stated, and Izuku nodded his head, but that just became another mental note for him to look into Shinso's current guardians since Izuku refused to let someone be neglected or abused, and Stella could see the thoughts just go across Izuku's eyes without him even speaking. Soon they all packed their things up and Izuku saw Shinso call someone, and he listened in since he had his suspicions that Shinso's family or caretakers were not caring for him as they should. He listened to Shinso as he left a voicemail for his caretakers and said that he would be staying with a friend for 2 weeks as they trained for the sports festival, and then he hanged up. Soon, they returned to Izuku and Stella's home. Shinso was surprised at the size and looks of the home and he couldn't help but feel a bit jealous. Let's go down to the gym downstairs. We will get to work and Stella is going to make us dinner while we keep working outside. You need as much training as you can get, so we will keep going non-stop and then use power nap to regain energy to keep going again, Izuku stated, and Shinso nodded his head and followed Izuku down a flight of stairs. It was a smaller gym than the one from UA, but it still had everything they would need and it had a ring to fight in. Izuku and Shinso got into the ring and continued where they left off from the gym at UA, and Izuku did not hold back. Third POV. Izumi Midoriya hated child abusers, he hated people that neglected children, he hated people that harmed those that couldn't really defend themselves, and he really hated it when adults that are meant to care for a child end up taking advantage of the said child. Izuku's BLD boiled for anyone in those categories, and he was ruthless in dealing with those types of peoples. As the training went on with Shinso for about a week now, Izuku decided to call the detective and have him start looking into Shinso's caretakers without raising any flags, and the information that Izuku gained was troubling. The caretakers would take in children with what people would deem as villainous quirks, and yet nearly all of them have run away from the caretakers, and it didn't paint a pretty picture. It was as if the children couldn't handle living in the home anymore and decided to run away. Izuku applied for a search warrant on suspicion of child neglect and the fact that so many children had run away from their homes, which painted them as either just horrible caretakers or that the children just were bad. It was barely enough, but with him flashing his special agent license, the judges gave in and allowed him to get his warrants to start searching in deeper. Izuku would go out while Shinso slept, or rather tried to sleep, since it turns out he had insomnia, which Izuku thought he was like a miniature version of his uncle in all honesty. Izuku decided to go look at the address for Shinso's caretakers and slipped into the house via his shadows. He knew the caretakers were out currently at their jobs, so Izuku had a good chance to look around the house, and he didn't like what he found. As Izuku looked around, he noticed the place was worn down and it looked like a place hard to live in. Izuku saw some mold as well and took pictures as evidence. If anything, Izuku thought he could get them on poor living conditions and revoke their ability to foster children since they received enough money to live in a slightly better place due to taking care of Shinso. As Izuku looked around the rest of the home, he came upon Shinso's room, which was bare. It had a mattress on the floor and barely anything in the room except some clothing and a spare UA uniform. Izuku took pictures of it and he was really wanting to find out what his caretakers were thinking. As he moved around the home and looked everything over, he noticed that the parents' room was far better in maintenance and living conditions than Shinso's room and the rest of the house. Izuku though noticed that there was a door that leads to somewhere else. Izuku opened it and he was said. It led to an entirely separate apartment area that was far better in condition. Izuku took pictures of everything and how the door led into the other apartment area and that there was evidence of the parents living in it but no signs of Shinso being allowed in it. He texted everything to the detective who said he would go arrest the foster parents and that Shinso was removed from their custody moving forward and would be moved to a new home, but Izuku didn't allow that to happen. He called the detective after seeing that. "Detective, I am taking custody of Shinso. I will foster him or even adopt him if I need to," Izuku stated, and the detective said it wasn't possible due to age limits. "Detective, do I need to remind you that I have a special agent license? It allows me to get around many laws that restrict me on age, and I doubt this will stop me either. Don't make me take drastic measures," Izuku stated, and the detective was silent and said he would see what he could do and ended the call, but Izuku just called the family lawyer up and asked for legal advice. "Are you able to practice law in Japan?" Izuku asked Seth King on the phone, and Seth confirmed he could. "Good, I need to foster a child in Japan that is the same age as me. He's a kid in general studies of UA that I am training for the sports festival, and I just had him removed from his foster parents, but the detective on the case is a bit resistant to me taking Shinso due to the age requirements to foster," Izuku stated to Seth King, and Seth was silent before speaking. "It can be worked around. If anything, we can get your father to adopt the kid and then transfer custody to you via the American courts. I will get working on some legal tactics that you can pull, but you could invoke UA's guardianship over Shinso since he attends the school. This puts him in the custody of UA and then they assign him to the care of one of the teachers, which you are a teacher there now," Seth King stated, and Izuku realized that was true and said he would invoke it if need be but would rather direct custody to be gained. Soon the call came to an end and Izuku went out to continue his patrol and was about 4 hours into the patrol when he received a phone call from the detective. "Hello, Hunter. I am calling to inform you that we did charge the foster parents with neglect and mental abuse based on my interview with them and the evidence you found. Shinso is now a ward of the state and needs to go into a foster system again or an orphanage. I can't get the caseworker to agree to let you take him. I'm sorry," the detective said, and Izuku was said. "Is the caseworker there right now?" Izuku asked and got a confirmation. Izuku told him that he would arrive in a few minutes and to keep her there. Izuku quickly headed off in that direction and sent his crows towards it since they could fly faster. As such, in about 5 minutes he ended up teleporting in front of the police station and walked in and went straight towards the detective's office to find the caseworker sitting there. "So please tell me why I can't take custody of the child?" Izuku asked, and the caseworker looked him up and down before speaking. "It's not appropriate or sensible for a child to take care of another child. You wouldn't even have the means to take care of another human being," the caseworker stated, and Izuku resisted the urge to just slam the woman's head into the desk in front of her. "Are you stupid? I am a pro-hero and I have the wealth to easily take care of another human, so please tell me how I am unable to take care of the child," Izuku asked her, and he saw a dark gleam in her eyes. "She's wanting to play it like that. The damn quirkist beach likely hates so-called villainous quirks," Izuku thought as he saw the look in her eyes and recognized it as someone that looked down on others. The women spoke up and started to spout bullshit. "This child has a history of causing issues for his caretakers and is unlikely to obey you since you're another child. Also, isn't it illegal for a child at your age to be a pro-hero?" she stated and asked him. Izuku chuckled. "Not in America, it's not. I am a pro-hero sent here by the American government and I am a special agent, which means the age laws don't apply to me. So you can't use my age against me. So are you going to transfer custody of Shinso to me, or do I need to take more drastic measures?" Izuku stated as he showed his special agent license, and she paled a bit at seeing it. She had thought the detective was joking with her and didn't believe that the pro-hero was a special agent, especially when Izuku had arrived. "I'm sure we can work something out," she said, and Izuku nodded his head. "Indeed, we will work this out by you transferring his custody to me in full and allowing me to be his foster parent. Do you understand me?" You will also do it right now and it will be done in full before I leave. Izuku stated and she nodded her head and started working on it. After about an hour and a half, she was done and handed him the paperwork to sign. He used the contract understanding quirk and looked through it and saw that it would only grant him custody for 30 days. He slammed it down and gripped her shoulder and looked her in the eyes behind his mask. Do you take me for a fool? This only grants me custody for 30 days before he is required to go to the foster system. Izuku stated and she paled since she hid that language deep in the contract and was confused on how he found it. Fix it and make it state that he's in my custody permanently and can't be revoked without a court order. Do you understand me? Izuku asked and she nodded her head and quickly made the changes. The detective just stayed silent the entire time since he was kind of afraid due to how sad Izuku was. Soon the lady finished the paperwork and Izuku signed the new work and the detective signed as a witness. The lady then submitted it and said it was done. Yeah, fanfic logic of how quickly it works. Izuku said she was free to go and he looked at the clock and realized Stella and Shinso would be awake sooner or later. He then looked at the detective and told him to look into the caseworker since she's clearly a quirkist beach and he nodded his head. Izuku soon arrived at his home and slipped into bed with his girlfriend and slept long enough that his power nap quirk activated and gave him all the energy he needed. Though, he was awoken about an hour and a half later when Stella got up. Izuku got up as well and filled her in on the details. So, I am a foster mother now. She asked as she tilted her head and Izuku choked on his drink. Yes. It's more I am a foster father since he's under my care but you're dating me so I guess. Congratulations but don't go spreading that since I think he would be embraced for people to find out. I will need to inform the staff of UA but the other students don't need to know. If anyone asks why we three appear close then tell them the truth of him being my personal student which would explain why he's near you a lot. Izuku stated and she nodded her head and they finished getting ready and headed downstairs to the kitchen and living room. They saw Shinso drinking coffee and a small breakfast and then he saw them. Sorry, I helped myself, he said and Izuku waved him off. It's fine but we do need to talk about a separate matter when we are all done that I want to talk about before we go to UA. Izuku stated and he nodded his head. After about 30 minutes they were all done eating and they sat down in the living room and looked at each other. So, I'll be honest. I had my suspicions of your home life from the start and the things you said tipped me off on it. I investigated your home life and your foster parents are under arrest already since last night. You've been assigned to someone else now. Izuku stated and Shinso broke into tears. Why? The new ones likely won't let me continue to you. It was my dream. Shinso yelled as he stood up and Izuku looked at him in the eyes before speaking. I know it's your dream and it's why I couldn't let you stay in that type of home without being cared for. I've already arranged your contained education at UA with the new foster parents which happens to be me and Stella or rather me mainly. Izuku stated and took a sip of his coffee and Shinso froze and just stood there in a frozen manner. Stella rolled her eyes and slapped Izuku on the head and scolded him for saying it that quickly. Shinso turned to her and she explained. My idiot love here means that you will live here from now on. He threatened the caseworker to put you in his custody as a foster child and him the foster parent. So that doesn't make me met your foster mother since I and him aren't married yet but in a way, it kind of does but you don't need to see us like that. Anyway, you don't need to worry about going hungry or anything since both of our families are wealthy and we can easily take care of you. So the room you're sleeping in is now yours from now on. Stella stated and Shinso broke down into tears and fell to his knees. Why are you doing this for me? Shinso asked and Izuku shrugged. Honestly, you reminded me of when my father found me when I ran away from my old family. I was just lucky Dad was my biological father and could take me away easier. I just felt like I needed to do it since I couldn't live with myself seeing you in that home and not actually being happy when I could provide you better. I can't exactly be a father I guess since we are the same age but I can be a brother who takes care of you. Izuku asked as he leaned down and hugged Shinso who hugged back. Stella looked at the time and realized they would need to leave soon. Boys, hate to break this up but it's about time for us to go, Stella said and they looked at the clock and agreed. Izuku told Shinso that he would need to inform UA of the change, but any of the students' knowledge of the situation is up to him, since Stella and Izuku would just tell them the truth of him being Izuku's personal student to cover up the closeness. Soon they headed off to the school and started their last week of training, and if Shinso supported a large smile all day, then Izuku and Stella never said anything about it at all.